because there's background noise here. Welcome, everyone, to the 6th annual and second virtual Rhode Island Food System Summit, entitled Driving Food Innovation Through Sustainable Partnerships. I'm Catherine Flynn, and I'm the Executive Director of the University of Rhode Island's Business Engagement Center, and I will serve as your MC today. I'm coming to you live from the University of Rhode Island's Narragansett Bay campus, the home of the nation's premier academic oceanographic, easy for me to say, institution. This campus has on it the Graduate School of Oceanography, or GSO as we call it at URI. GSO educates marine scientists, students, policymakers, business leaders, citizens, and helps address knowledge around the oceans. We also have on this campus ocean engineering, as well as our aquaculture activities. Today's agenda is packed. We've got lots going on, and it's very exciting. We have first, you'll hear from URI's new president, Mark Parlange, as well as our senior senator in Rhode Island, Senator Jack Reed, about the importance of innovation in agriculture and aquaculture to support our state and regional goals. Then you'll hear from Julianne Stamazik, Director of Food Strategy for Rhode Island, who will discuss her plans to update the 2017 Rhode Island Food Strategy, and her goals to work with Rhode Island and URI going forward. Next, you'll hear from a panel of state experts and leaders about innovative techniques to increase production of vegetables in Rhode Island. Then you'll hear from a panel of community and business leaders about how the state is working to increase aquaculture and the use of underutilized species, advances in direct sales, and the need for local fish processing. After that, you'll hear from a panel of experts who will discuss funding opportunities for agriculture, aquaculture throughout the state and federal programs. Finally, you'll be hearing from Mary Parlange, our president's wife, about her work to support the food ecosystem on campus and in the state. With this event, we hope to start a dialogue about what's happening in Rhode Island and what we can do to move this work forward. Throughout the day, please feel free to ask questions of our speakers by accessing the Business Engagement Center YouTube and Twitter pages. If time allows, we'll be pulling questions from our audience to pose to our speakers. And then don't forget to include the hashtag RIFoodSummit2022 when you post about today's event on social media. Before we get started for the day, I'd like to take some time to showcase some of the work going on at URI to support innovative work in the food sector. This is from our Kingston campus at the URI Agronomy Farm. Let's take a look.
The Agronomy Farm is on the URI campus. URI was founded as a college of agriculture. The agricultural experiment station actually predates the university itself by 4 years, and we've always had farms on campus.
We're here at the University of Rhode Island's Gardener Crops Research Center, which is informally known as the Agronomy Farm. And it's where we conduct research on vegetable crops, for instance, grain crops. And it's also a great teaching resource for the University of Rhode Island. So we hold labs here and classes. So it gives students hands-on experience. You know, I just love to grow plants, I love to grow food, and I just really enjoy imparting some of my knowledge to them and seeing them grow and develop through our Sustainable Agriculture and Food Systems program.
I work with students in 2 different ways. So I have my classes where we're working in a large group, but then I also use a lot of student labor in my projects. So I have a lot of students who work for me, and we're working much more one-on-one, and we really get to know each other. A lot of the students I've had over the years are now the farmers that I work with.
My name is Farid Geshem. I'm originally from Iran, and I'm working on saffron here and also on vegetables. This year is the fourth year that we work on saffron, and every year we had the acceptable or good yield, and even more than twice as Iran. In Rhode Island, all the farms are so small, and saffron is a best option because farmers no need to have the machines, and it's great for this area, I think.
Here at the Agronomy Farm, of course, I'm always harvesting food from my plots. And so our food is donated to a variety of organizations and groups. So some of it goes to the Rhode Island Community Food Bank. Some of it goes to the Johnny Cake and Food Pantry, for instance, in Wakefield. Also our own graduate village, because we do have food insecurity issues here on campus. And so, of course, it's the University of Rhode Island, and we want to take care of our own.
You'll be hearing from some of URI's key experts today, including Dr. John Taylor, who was featured in this video. We also look forward to hearing more from him and all of our other speakers that I mentioned later today. Once again, we're very excited for today's Rhode Island Food Systems Summit. We thank you for joining us for the pre-summit activities. We'll get started with the summit in just a few minutes. Good morning and welcome to the 6th annual and second virtual Rhode Island Food System Summit. It's entitled Driving Food Innovation Through Sustainable Partnerships. And we're excited to have over 300 people from across industry, academia, government, and philanthropy attending virtually today. I'm Catherine Flynn, and I'm the Executive Director of the University of Rhode Island Business Engagement Center, and I will be your MC today. I'm coming to you live from the University of Rhode Island's Narragansett Bay campus, the home to one of the nation's premier academic oceanography institutions, the GSO, as we call it at URI, or Graduate School of Oceanography. The GSO educates marine scientists, students, policymakers, business leaders, and citizens, and helps develop knowledge and skills necessary to address present and future marine challenges. Many GSO alums go on to work in government, industry, and nonprofits around the world. The GSO is home to some of the world's leading researchers, including Dr. Bob Ballard, the discoverer of the Titanic, and is led by GSO alum, NASA scientist, Dr. Paula Bontempi. We're so pleased to bring this event to you live from such an amazing location. It also happens to play a critical role in the state's food system, including all the aquaculture research and climate change activities on campus. As you know, this year's event will focus on driving food innovation. New England is a region with ambitious goals of producing 50% of the food consumed in the state by 2060. This will not be achieved without innovative methods and partnerships to help grow our food system. Today, you'll hear from speakers from across all the country on a wide range of topics, including controlled environment agriculture, new developments in shellfish aquaculture, and novel financing opportunities. Speakers will discuss successes and lessons learned as well as we take this food system and apply it to everything in the region. Just a quick overview of the day. The agenda will begin with the URI new president, Mark Parlange, and Senator Jack Reed, our senior senator, both of whom understand the importance of innovation in agriculture and aquaculture to support the state's and region's goals. Then you'll hear from Julianne Stamazik. She is the Director of Food Strategy for the state of Rhode Island, and her goal to work with Rhode Island and URI going forward. Next, you'll hear from a panel of state leaders about innovative techniques to increase production of vegetables in Rhode Island, something that is vital to our ecosystem. Then you'll hear from a panel of community and business leaders about how the state is working to increase aquaculture and the use of underutilized species and advances in direct sales and the need for local fish processing. After that, you'll hear from a panel of experts who will discuss funding opportunities for agriculture, aquaculture activities throughout the state and federal programs. Finally, you'll hear from our president's wife, Mary Parlange, about her work to support innovation on campus and in the state. With this event, we hope to start a dialogue about what's happening in Rhode Island and what we can do to move forward. We will definitely be taking periodic breaks so you can grab coffee and stretch your legs. During those breaks, we'll show some videos of activities taking place across the state and at URI. So please be sure to stay tuned in. We are also pleased to welcome URI President Mark Parlange, who you'll hear from in a minute, and Senator Jack Reed's offices, his staff and his office, as well as the office of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, representatives from Congressman Cicilline's office, and representatives from several state departments, including esteemed panelists from Department of Environmental Management and Rhode Island Commerce Corporation. This year's Food Summit is being live streamed, as you can see, by the URI Inner Space Center and the Graduate School of Oceanography, including Alex DeCiccio and Ryan Campos. I would like to thank both of them, as well as our event staff, Sharon Pavignano and Katie McGuinn, as well as Dino Audiello. Throughout the day, please feel free to ask questions of our speakers by accessing the URI Business Engagement Center YouTube and Twitter pages. If time allows, we will be pulling questions from the audience to pose to our speakers. And don't forget to include the hashtag RIFoodSummit22 when you post about today's events on social media. That's hashtag RI Food Summit 22. Next, we would like to show a pre-recorded welcome from URI's new president, Mark Parlange. Mark Parlange became the university's president a mere 6 months ago on August 1st, 2021. He is a distinguished researcher and global higher education leader. Parlange joins URI from Monash University in Australia, where he served as provost and senior vice president. Welcome, President Parlange.
Good morning. Welcome to the 6th Annual Rhode Island Food Systems Summit. This is our second year meeting virtually, but I'm pleased we have the opportunity today to hear from many leaders in our community about incredible initiatives underway across the state. I want to extend a special welcome to Senator Jack Reed and representatives from his office. I also want to welcome representatives from the offices of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and Congressman David Cicilline. And welcome to representatives from several state departments, including panelists from the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management and the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation. Events like today would not be possible without your support, and I can't thank you enough for your continued engagement with URI and the important work we're doing in the lab and in the field. Without a doubt, the past 2 years have been challenging. The global pandemic has strained resources in every industry, from healthcare to manufacturing to food production, and it's deepened already significant crises that we're facing as a society, including threats to our food system from climate change and economic factors. The pandemic has required us to make simple shifts in our daily lives, but it also has required us to think more critically about how to solve these bigger world issues. As the state's land and sea grant institution, the University of Rhode Island is already conducting innovative research, especially in agriculture and aquaculture, with the potential for tremendous impact in the state and beyond. In fact, a few weeks ago, URI was awarded a $500,000 Build Back Better Regional Challenge grant to advance research and initiatives in the blue economy, particularly in aquaculture, ocean engineering, and offshore wind. In recent years, our researchers have been awarded grants to study oyster genetics, breeding, and diseases as part of a region-wide effort to support the growing oyster aquaculture industry. And just last month, I had the pleasure of attending the Undergraduate Research Fellow Symposium to hear about fascinating work being done by our Coastal and Environmental Fellows, Science and Engineering Fellows, and Energy Fellows. Projects range from exploring the effects of spawning and overwintering on the mortality rate of oysters, to understanding community perceptions towards aquaculture farms in the region, and enhancing the sustainability of urban agriculture through advances in technology and food production systems. In addition to aquaculture, the university will continue to develop tools, infrastructure, policies, and programs to foster a more sustainable and resilient food system in our state. We will continue to support the community through programs like Food Recovery for Rhode Island, a new initiative that will change the way Rhode Islanders shop for, store, prepare, preserve, and compost food to promote sustainability and reduce unnecessary food waste. The URI Cooperative Extension, which provides education and learning opportunities to people across the country, is another way the university is impacting rural and urban communities. Through this program, URI translates valuable research into practical information for agricultural producers, small business owners, consumers, and families to use in their daily lives. Services like the URI Free Seed Program, invasive plant management training, and webinars on food justice and soil remediation are just a few of the ways the cooperative extension is improving agricultural, environmental, economic, and social conditions on a greater scale. It is clear that research being done at URI will have immediate implications on our path to recovery from the pandemic, but it will also address more significant global challenges we will face in the years to come. Today, you will hear from community members who are leading in pioneering and inspiring ways, and I'm confident you will leave with valuable information for use in your own lives. Thank you for joining us in the 2022 Rhode Island Food Systems Summit. Please enjoy the day, and thank you.
Thank you, President Parlange. I don't think we could have a bigger supporter in the President's office for the food ecosystem. We really appreciate you taking the time to make this video. Next, we will show a pre-recorded welcome from another big food supporter in Rhode Island, and that is Rhode Island Senator, Senior Senator Jack Reed. Welcome, Senator Reed.
Hi, I'm Senator Jack Reed, and I am pleased to join you for the 6th Annual Rhode Island Food Systems Summit, hosted by the University of Rhode Island. We all understand that food is the basic building block of health, well-being, and security. And I'd like to thank the University of Rhode Island and President Mark Parlange, along with Catherine Flynn and everyone at the URI Business Engagement Center for their steadfast leadership on this vital issue. When the COVID-19 pandemic began, it disrupted our nation and state's food systems and created new challenges to ensuring that people have access to nutritious food. These disruptions forced businesses and government agencies to reevaluate the way our state's food system works. And the results have been very promising. We have seen enhanced collaboration between Rhode Island's institutions of higher education, government agencies, businesses, and nonprofits, including the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, which has been instrumental in this work. The outcome of these collaborations has been new, innovative programs to strengthen our local food system and provide increased support to our local food producers, consumers, and those facing food insecurity. Programs like URI's partnership with the Office of Healthy Aging, through which URI distributes tens of thousands of meals to the elderly and food insecure during the pandemic, are an example of this. Programs like Farm Fresh's new effort to expand access to locally caught seafood products at local farmers markets. And I was pleased that Farm Fresh Rhode Island recently received a $538,000 federal grant to do just that. Farm Fresh also recently received a $1.6 million federal grant to bolster its Bonus Bucks program, which provides a one-to-one match to SNAP recipients at a number of Rhode Island farmers markets and farm stands, doubling the purchasing power of low-income Rhode Islanders and helping Rhode Island farmers and food businesses sell more local foods. It's a win-win for families and our state's economy. We've also seen how thoughtful food systems work helps to strengthen our bonds as a community while solving sometimes simple problems along the way. For example, earlier this year, I had the pleasure of visiting a gleaning site with Ava and her volunteers at Hope's Harvest, Rhode Island's first gleaning project. I saw volunteers of all ages and backgrounds who had come together for a safe outdoor activity to rescue unharvested food from local farms that would otherwise go to waste. Hope's Harvest then distributes its healthy, local food to people in need. These volunteers told me how important their work was to them and how connected they felt to their community, especially during this difficult time. Programs like these have also helped our state continue its shift toward locally grown food. Our local farms and processes not only increase Rhode Islanders' access to fresh, healthy food, but also support thousands of jobs. We must continue to invest in our local food systems and the small businesses that provide good jobs in our communities and provide our families with affordable and wholesome food. That is why I'm so pleased that you are all here today to discuss innovative approaches to controlling environmental agriculture, shellfish and seafood production, and the state's food strategy. I have no doubt that you will have a very, very productive discussions today. And I look forward to seeing the great ideas and action that come out of this summit. And in the meantime, I will continue working in Washington to champion the development of a more resilient food system, support our local producers, and address food insecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reed. In fact, thanks to the entire congressional delegation for your support of the food ecosystem here in Rhode Island. Before I welcome our keynote speaker, I just want to point out that it started to snow on cue here at the GSO. So thank God we're virtual. You all can sit at your houses and watch with a cup of coffee in front of you. In fact, now's the time to get that cup of coffee while we show our next video, which is from one of our partners at URI, 11th Hour Racing.
My grandfather always said, you see, there's a trick to it. And then he would patiently, precisely explain how it all works. A clever way to fix it. A brilliant solution to some problem that we got ourselves into. We take these things for granted. This knowledge, these tricks. But that's the magic of this world. To be confused, challenged, and then find a solution to a difficult problem. Whether it's the mechanical, man-made gadgets, or the mysterious wonders of the natural world. Take the oyster, for example. I mean, look at this thing. It doesn't look like a magician, but watch this trick. A handful of oysters, some filthy water, and a few hours later, presto, a tank of clean water. How does that happen? Magic? How did this happen? It's 1908. There are 350 square miles of oyster reefs in the New York Harbor. Manhattan is the oyster capital of the world. Then, 100 years later, almost nothing. That's more than 169,000 football fields of delicious oysters reduced to zero. A disappearing act. Sleight of hand. As we were all looking one way, obscured by the glass and concrete and stone, our gaze trained on the bustle of the boulevards and boardrooms, poof, gone. And in its place, a dirty tank. We often feel like we are audience members in this show, feeling slighted or tricked by the system. A system that feels too big to change. Too many giant cogs in a wheel with rusty, crunching gears. A system that's become a part of us, but can easily feel apart from us. Distant. Not in my backyard. But what about your backyard? Can you do something magical there? Have you seen this trick? Watch this. I mean, look at that. A little closer. Closer. Ah, yes. Tiny organisms. Tiny magicians working their decomposing magic. A small act, but if you zoom back out, a little further, look at all these backyards. Our waste can make a difference. It can sequester carbon. It can create a healthier world if we shift gears, just slightly, and let it perform its magic. So we get this instead of more of this. Little steps by a bunch of little magicians, from tiny organisms to these bike-riding badasses to these guys. I mean, they think that if we restored even a portion of the oyster reefs in the New York City harbor, and over the next 10 years, put 1 billion of these back into this tank, those resilient rocks will be able to filter all of this every 72 hours. Like tiny microscopic gears and ancient turbines firing on celestial cylinders, more powerful than most man-made machines. From the ocean to our soils, an invisible cycle that connects it all. So, like my grandfather always used to say, you see, there's a trick to it. And that trick, maybe it's knowledge, sometimes a very specific knowledge, and understanding. That's the magic. That healthy soil that grows our food. That life-giving water that flows around us and beneath us and waves and beckons to us at our shores. Even that wind in your sails that you harness on great journeys or small adventures. That's all magic. Choose magic.
Thank you so much to 11th Hour Racing for allowing us to share that video. Now it's time to hear from our keynote speaker, Julianne Stabozic, Director of Food Strategy for Rhode Island Commerce Corporation and for the state. Her position is supported not only by Commerce, but by the Department of Environmental Management and the Department of Health in Rhode Island. Julianne joined the Commerce team in 2021 and is already making a huge difference in the state. She has a decade of experience in food and agriculture sector, working in schools, businesses, and institutions to address sustainability issues and increase regional procurement. Most recently, Julianne served as a manager of regional and sustainable food systems at Boston College, where she launched an initiative to increase institutional procurement of regional food in support of the New England Food Vision, and implemented sustainability strategies to improve the environmental and social impact of campus food services. Following Julie's presentation, she and I will have what we're calling a fireside chat, but it's actually a Bayside chat today, and I would love right now to welcome Julie.
Good morning. Thank you, Catherine, for such a warm welcome. I'm thrilled to be here for the 6th annual Food Summit hosted by the University of Rhode Island. As our state's land and sea grant university, URI is a vital partner as we work to achieve our state's food vision. I would like to extend a sincere thanks to the Business Engagement Center and their team for carrying the torch over the last 6 years, ensuring that we continue to have this space, albeit virtual, to gather and plan our collective work towards a more equitable and regional food system. I would also like to thank my close partners in this work at Commerce, DEM, RIDO, and the Food Policy Council. Your continued support and collaboration has been invaluable. 5 years ago, our leaders launched a statewide food strategy called Relish Rhody, making us just one of 18 states with a food plan, and among just a handful with a dedicated position to execute the plan. The vision set out to achieve 5 overarching goals: to preserve agriculture and fisheries, to improve the climate for food businesses, to create new markets for Rhode Island products, and to divert excess food waste, and to ensure that all Rhode Islanders have adequate food to live healthy and fulfilling lives. Over the past several years, we have been recognized as leaders in paving the way for a more sustainable and resilient food system, which is evidenced by the 400 plus of you tuning in today. I'm honored to serve as the 2nd Director of Food Strategy for the state of Rhode Island, and I'm indebted to my predecessor, Sue Anderbois, who laid the foundation for so much of our success, no doubt with help from many of you. My role is responsible for the implementation of our state's food strategy. I work to connect and share resources, champion and support our food, farm, and fish businesses, and accelerate the growth of a more regional food economy. I come to this work having spent over a decade in the food sector, working in dozens of food-related jobs as a chef, farmer, food educator, and sustainability manager. And I'm humbled by the opportunity to serve Rhode Islanders in my new capacity. I relocated to the state from the Boston area last year, and since I arrived, have observed a few Rhode Island characteristics. That is a deep pride of place and a fiercely collaborative spirit. People here love it here and seem to be invested in each other's success. Perhaps as a small state, it's hard not to wish your neighbor well, or that we want to prove we can punch above our weight. Whatever the reason, this sense of belonging and collaboration most certainly contribute to the strength of our food system. In fact, our food sector in aggregate represents nearly $4.5 billion in economic output and supports 70,000 jobs, according to the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, making it one of the largest employers in Rhode Island. With more than 5,000 businesses and hundreds of nonprofit organizations working across the food system, it is a significant economic and social engine. This past year, I've had the privilege to travel around the state and see our food system firsthand, observing both its strengths and its vulnerabilities as we continue to adapt to the COVID pandemic. I've met with over 250 individuals, businesses, state agencies, and institutions working across the food sector, and would like to reflect on a few of the food stories I heard during my visits. I visited fourth and first generation dairy farmers innovating with new products, technology, and sales channels to meet changing consumer demands. I visited commercial ports like Galilee, where over 100 species land and nearly 100 million pounds of seafood land each year to be distributed around the world, with an export value over $1 billion. I learned about the challenges that shellfish farmers face in adapting to a warming Narragansett Bay, and the struggle of food manufacturers trying to balance an unprecedented labor shortage with surging consumer demand. I visited school cafeterias where food service leaders are finding creative ways to serve healthy and local food, even in the face of unimaginable workplace stresses during their hardest year yet. And I met with farmers who cautiously rejoiced as their customer base grew and people turned to more local food sources during the pandemic, while at the same time, they expressed concern for their farm's legacy, as many Rhode Island farmers near retirement age with no succession plan. I've seen our food system in all of its grandeur, meeting the tenacious and creative people who are just as inspired as I am by our collective power to build a better food future. There are many more organizations and partners to meet, and I look forward to connecting with more of you in the year ahead. Over the last decade, we have steadily nurtured a more local food system in Rhode Island. However, this did not leave us immune to the massive disruptions that the pandemic forced us to reckon with. As a state that imports some 90% of our food, we are reliant on distant food producers and grappled with national and global food supply chain disruptions. The pandemic also brought into focus just how broken our food system really was. Frontline workers in food service and factories experienced the highest rates of layoffs and faced disproportionately higher exposure to the virus, which caused a ripple effect of labor shortages, food price inflation, and record levels of food insecurity, all of which we are still experiencing today. But at the same time, we saw our food community come together. Nonprofit organizations partnered to bring food to those in need. People turned to their local food producers when supermarket shelves were empty. And our restaurants invented fun and creative outdoor spaces for us to gather safely. For many of us, the pandemic validated that a more local and community-based food system is a more resilient one and will help us better respond to future challenges. It also reminded us the importance to celebrate when we can. Celebrating our successes and acknowledging our collective growth helps us to stay informed and motivated towards our goals. It is also a way for us to show gratitude and appreciation. So, in the spirit of celebration, 5 years into our food strategy, and after 5 food summits, I would like to take this moment to recognize a few of our collective accomplishments towards our food vision. While many states are seeing a decline in farmers, Rhode Island bucks the trend with a marked increase in new and beginning farmers, young farmers, and immigrant food producers entering the field. There's now even a waiting list for many urban growers who are lining up to lease land from organizations like Southside Community Land Trust. We're also seeing a new generation of farmers working to protect their family's legacy through product innovation, e-commerce, marketing, and new technology. And our seafood sector continues to grow, with aquaculture experiencing a 10-fold increase in the last decade. We have made significant investments in our food economy, and it is paying off. Over the last 5 years, the state has invested more than $25 million in our food, farm, and fish businesses via grants, small business loans, tax credits, and more. This has led to growth of incredible organizations like Farm Fresh Rhode Island, our state's food hub, which now supports more than 200 businesses and 8 co-located food entrepreneurs at their new headquarters in Providence. We've invested in the preservation of our farmland through our green bonds and the Agricultural Land Preservation Commission, which has protected more than 700 acres in the last 5 years. Still, land access and development pressures continue to be one of the major challenges for farmers, which is why we must continue to invest in our local agriculture and seafood infrastructure to ensure long-term food security in Rhode Island. Our food entrepreneurs are finding creative ways to innovate at the nexus of food, tech, and sustainability. We're seeing exciting growth among food businesses focused on health, technology, plant-based eating, and vertical farming. Many businesses are finding opportunities in Rhode Island's strategic location and innovative food ecosystem. And our state has become a testing ground for food product innovation and manufacturing. In fact, Hope and Main, our state's culinary incubator, has helped launch more than 350 food businesses since their founding in 2014, many of which are now even distributing nationally. Rhode Islanders are also eating more local food more of the year. The pandemic accelerated an already upward trend of local food consumption. Since 2020, farmers have reported increasing demand for their food products, with our state's farmers market attendance up 44% in the last 2 years. We're also seeing a growth in food production under greenhouses, helping us to extend the growing season and provide fresh, seasonal food throughout the year. And lastly, we are making steady progress to improve food access and divert food waste. This year, URI's Co-op Extension launched a new the trainer program on food recovery for Rhode Island, which has already engaged almost 100 Rhode Islanders to become community advocates for food waste diversion. One of the goals of our food strategy was to launch a hunger elimination task force to strengthen collaboration and knowledge sharing across partners. Thanks to the leaders of the Department of Health and the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, the task force has connected over 115 organizations and individuals working to address hunger and improve food access. And while food insecurity did increase during the pandemic, it likely would have been far worse if we hadn't made those investments in our local food infrastructure and had a dedicated network of incredible organizations like the Rhode Island Community Food Bank, the Elijah Project, Eating with the Ecosystem and Hope's Harvest, and countless others who deliver food to our most vulnerable neighbors. These are just a few of our collective accomplishments over the last 5 years since the inception of Relish Rhody. Even when there's a lot of work to do, you still have to slow down and celebrate what you've accomplished. So I hope that you will spend time to look back at 2021 and recognize your good work. So with the last 5 years as proof, we know what it takes to build a more resilient and sustainable food system. Good food is a tool for better health outcomes, a cleaner environment, job creation, and more resilient communities. Now is the time, as our previous speakers have said, to take advantage of this unprecedented moment to invest in our food system. In fact, at this week's State of the State address, Governor McKee outlined an agenda which included goals to invest in our small food businesses, farmers, and seafood processors. As we look ahead to 2022 and beyond, these are just a few of the top priorities I hope that we can achieve. We must invest in our food infrastructure, businesses, and workforce to ensure long-term food security. We must connect more emergency food programs with our local food producers so that Rhode Islanders can feed Rhode Islanders. We need to expand resources for urban communities to grow their own food and find ways to help farmers access farmland. We should better leverage our food system as a tool to address social inequities and achieve our climate goals. And lastly, this year, we will update our state's food strategy, Relish Rhody, as we work towards our goal of the New England Food Vision. URI will be an essential partner in this process, helping us to convene stakeholders and conduct research, as will many of your organizations. So I look forward to hearing your vision for the next 5 years and beyond on how we can continue to build a better food future together. Food systems have the power to address our climate crisis, improve human health, and contribute to a more equitable society. I am confident that if we can make it happen in Rhode Island, we can do it anywhere. I hope you enjoy the rest of today's program, and I really look forward to continuing the conversation with Catherine next. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Wow, you have done a lot in your short time here in Rhode Island. All those pictures were incredible. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, actually, because you have a unique role here. You're being paid or being supported by 3 different agencies here in the state: the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental Management, and the Department of Commerce. Can you tell me, like, what is their sort of interest in the food sector, and why were they interested in bringing you on board?
Sure. Well, our food strategy is really centered around 3 pillars: environmental sustainability, economic development, and health equity. So I think it makes a lot of sense that this position is shared across multiple agencies. Our goals that we laid out in the food vision, those kind of 5 focus areas, really require interagency coordination to navigate regulations, permitting, economic incentives, and business supports. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have the position kind of cut across these 3 agencies. For instance, an example might be if, with business development, if we're working with businesses to try to support them in the state or help them land in Rhode Island, by having close contacts in RIDO and DEM, I can be a better resource to help those businesses navigate things like food safety or environmental regulation. But it's not just the 3 agencies that I work with. Our IFNPAC, it's called, our Interagency Food, Nutrition, and Policy Council, actually brings together 8 state agencies that all have a vested interest in our food goals.
Wow, 8. That's impressive, getting all those stakeholders around the table. But I do think because of that, Rhode Island really can become sort of a real showcase opportunity for the state and then for the nation if we continue to do your hard work and all those agencies' hard work. These are really exciting times for food companies in Rhode Island. And I know that New England has this 50 by 60 vision with plans for CEA and aquaculture in Rhode Island. Can you tell us about that vision, how it came about, and what your role would be to help that vision come to life?
Sure. So I believe the food vision came out of the University of New Hampshire and the Sustainability Institute there, I think something like 10 years ago. And it's really an exciting time. I guess we tend to plan in decades. It's easier to remember. And so, having just started a new decade of this work, the food vision is actually in the process of being updated for our region, which is exciting and fortunate for us as we also kind of look towards the future, because we have an opportunity to kind of align our state goals with more regional goals, which is critical because the reality is we are a small state and we need to think as our food shed more regionally. So the way that we're thinking about that as a state is really working collaboratively with some of the other state partners to think about what can we offer as a state to the region and vice versa. So for instance, there's a really wonderful group of folks that have been meeting for the past 10 years called the New England Food System Planners Partnership. They've launched, they were awarded a USDA grant, and I've been able to kind of join this group with Nessa at the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, representing Rhode Island, and it's called New England Feeding New England. And the work is actually to take the vision and to figure out how we actually make it a reality. So looking at our production, consumption among each state and how we can collectively work towards that vision. And they've moved up the deadline a little now. So the closer goal is actually 30 by 30. So how do we consume 30% of the food that how do we produce 30% of the food that we consume in our region by 2030, which feels like it could be achieved.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, it feels tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's really an aggressive goal, but that's exciting. At Commerce, I'm sure one of your roles is not only to work with companies here in Rhode Island. Obviously, we saw a lot of those on your presentation, But are there companies that are interested in Rhode Island or interested in coming here? What kind of companies are they? And how do we work to help you recruit them here?
Yeah, so Rhode Island, I think we're getting a lot of, that's right. So I do work with companies both in state, helping them to stay or expand, as well as attract companies out of state. It's a really important opportunity. And the Brookings Institute report that came out, which kind of informed our food strategy, one of the core focuses is really food innovation, manufacturing, and these kind of areas. So a lot of food businesses that we're working with at Commerce really see Rhode Island as a strategic location in the Northeast, given our access to, I think, 60 million people, right, more broadly, who live along the Northeast corridor, as well as our innovative ecosystem, right, which we heard from today, and we're going to hear about more with URI as a partner in R&D, market development, and culinary innovation. So we're getting a mix of lots of different companies that are interested. Definitely food manufacturers and distributors, but also a lot of controlled environment agriculture companies that are looking at growing under glass, vertically in urban areas and rural. So it's really exciting. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to really bring together these three pillars of our strategy by thinking about food security, sustainability, and job creation.
Well, and we have a panel later today about innovation in agriculture, and we will be talking about CEA, as it's known, Controlled Environment Agriculture, as part of that panel. So you mentioned a little bit about your activities in the New England region, and I'm really pleased to hear that everybody's working together. It's hard to get the 6 New England states to collaborate on pretty much anything, so this is great. But I think, you know what, everybody eats. We need to address food insecurity. We need to address some of these bigger picture issues, so I'm thrilled to hear that. Can you talk a little more about your New England region activities and how active you are?
Sure. Yeah. Before this position, I've worked in food systems projects in Massachusetts and Vermont. So I'm lucky to still have those contacts and kind of stay connected to their parallel work. But in this position, I am part of a few different groups. So I mentioned one is New England, Feeding New England, which is a project of the New England State Food System Planners. And it's really exciting because it's kind of a window into seeing what the other states do. And we are a region, New England is a relatively small region when you think about food producing regions in other parts of the country. And I think I'm really excited by the potential of thinking more regionally about how we shift diets and, could Rhode Island seafood feed more of New Englanders, right? As opposed to focusing on national or global supply chains. I'm also on the Network Advisory Council for Farm to Institution New England, which is another amazing organization that works across 6 states to increase the amount of good local food served in our region's institutions. So K-12 schools, colleges, healthcare, and prisons. And so that's really exciting, kind of focused on this farm to institution movement. And I know it's a really big focus of ours, and I hope to be expanding that work with our partners at the Division of Agriculture and the Department of Education.
That's great. I think it's really exciting that we're working, as I said, collaboratively across state lines. So I was involved in the original Relish Roadie 5 years ago. We helped convene stakeholders and obviously helped work with Sue at the time on establishing priorities. So we have 300 or so people tuned in right now. How can organizations and the public share their thoughts on your next version 2.0 of Relish Roadie? And will there be stakeholder convenings? And also, how can URI help?
Yes, thank you, Catherine. I'm so glad you asked. We're really seeing this as a revamp and an update to the food strategy. There's been so much amazing progress that have happened. And so, we're kind of loosely referring to it as this 2.0. So URI is going to be a critical partner, and I hope that we'll be able to use this space and the folks that are on the call today to really convene in the coming months community conversations, but also thinking about specific stakeholder groups that are maybe focused on the different parts of our food strategy, food access, job creation, economic development, seafood and aquaculture, and really bring together folks that are around the same focus areas. So URI, I hope, will be a partner in that. And we also have already been working actually with some URI professors and researchers to help us better understand some metrics around our food economy. It's one of the challenges I think that we have. The USDA census, for instance, is also often cited as kind of being inaccurate, sometimes overlooked by smaller states like Rhode Island. And so URI, I think, is going to be a really big partner in that, in both convening and helping us to get some baseline metrics so we can understand, what impact have we had in the last 5 years, and then where are the areas that we need to focus on going forward. So I hope that this group, who's attending today, will be able to join those calls. Definitely email me, email the Business Engagement Center, right? The message will get to us. And we're really just in the process right now of kind of designing what we want to do.
And quickly, timing or your goal in terms of timing, I just am curious. I remember the original Relish Roti took about a year. So I'm just curious how long you're thinking you're going to be working on this. Yeah,
well, I think COVID taught me not to have any expectations. So, but if I'm dreaming, I guess it would be really wonderful if I think in about a year, around this time, 2023, if we really have a kind of clear roadmap going forward, I think that would be really wonderful.
Great. So we can look forward to next year's Food Summit and maybe rolling out Relish Roti 2.0.
There we go.
There we go. That could be a goal. So I think we have some time for audience questions. I'm going to ask the folks behind the scenes to give me some cues. Oh, there's the first one. So California, this is a question from William Gates. I'm not sure if it's actually Bill Gates. California recently introduced statewide food waste diversion program requiring all households to segregate food waste. What is Rhode Island doing to promote food waste composting?
Okay, yeah. So I guess I would point to a couple different really great initiatives. I think that there's both state and municipal level initiatives that are happening. And then there's also just businesses coming in. So I know there's several new, I think, businesses in recent years that are doing residential and commercial level composting, which is really wonderful. I signed up for one as well at my house in Providence. And then we have partners like CET, the Center for Ecotechnology. They have expanded from Massachusetts to Rhode Island in recent years, and they're on the ground working with mostly, I think, restaurants, food service operators, and institutions to figure out how to reduce food waste at the source. So the EPA, they have their kind of triangle of source reduction, and at the top is just to reduce the source, right? And composting is really at the bottom. So I think we really need to move up the supply chain and think about what are the ways that we can reduce food waste in the first place. Rhode Island also has already some existing legislation around required food waste diversion and composting for institutions. I believe it's if they produce over a ton a week, something close to that. So we do have some of these in place, but there's definitely still a lot of work to be done.
So that's something to think about policy-wise and to sort of watch how things go in California, I guess, and take some cues. Sometimes, as you said about the New England region, learning from other states and what they're doing is actually a way to sort of implement things here in the state. I don't know if there are other audience questions. Here's one from Andy Kendall. Julie, what do you see as the biggest obstacle right now to make progress toward your goals and your priorities?
Thank you. Hi, Andy. Great question. I think there's an easy answer and a difficult answer. So I would say the broader systemic issue or challenge that we have is that we are operating in this national and global system where a lot of commodity foods are subsidized. And so it's really difficult for a place like Rhode Island or even New England, right, to try to compete with these national supply chains and global supply chains. I also think that there's a challenge with changing consumer habits. So we are seeing people eat more local, but people are still eating a lot of salmon and tuna, and they're not trying as much of these local kind of foods that might grow better in New England, right? And so I think that that's really challenging, is that convenience factor of how do you change consumer habits, so that so we can think about eating more diverse species that land here on our coast in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, as opposed to being shipped over, like shrimp, right, from Asia and things like that. But the easy answer, I think, is, or I don't know if it's easy, but the more shorter term obstacle, I think, is, and maybe it's an opportunity, is really investment. So really seeing food systems and the food sector as a tool for us to address economic growth and mobility, health equity, environmental sustainability. We have all these amazing climate goals and economic development goals. And I think that's the challenge and the opportunity for us to really see food as a mechanism to achieve those goals.
Great. And I was pleased to hear in your remarks that farmers market, local farmers market activity is up 44%. That's a good example of sort of people sourcing locally and understanding not only is it good for them, but it's good for the economy if you're sourcing locally from companies. Are there specific fish that we should be looking for in the store that are sort of grown here, as you say, rather than salmon and tuna?
Yeah. Well, there's some that are grown here in our aquaculture farms, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot that are wild harvested, right? Like our fishermen are the last frontier of this kind of like wild hunting, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
So sure. So I think
calamari, of course.
Calamari, you can, of course, calamari, and I would qualify that as fresh calamari. So what a lot of us might be surprised to hear is that over 80% of our calamari is frozen and shipped overseas to be processed, and then some of it comes back to us. And that's just because of this lack of wastewater processing infrastructure, something that we're hoping to address with this really exciting Blue Economy grant. But aside from fresh calamari, monkfish, scup, sea robin, and I'm not the expert on this. The best place to look is Eating with the Ecosystem. Here in Rhode Island, they have amazing resources. There's also other organizations, a company like Fearless Fish in Providence. They have the best newsletters, and I learned so much about what's in season. So there's just so many
recipes
and recipes. Yeah, and they have a fish share, the local catch. So if someone wants to eat more seafood, it is not hard to do so. You just got to plug in and commit. And most fish, I think you can kind of like, $3.75, bake it, some lemon, you're good to go. It's not as scary as people think.
Good to know for someone who's not a very good cook. I think we have other questions, I believe, from the audience. Are there other questions? From Lotazi, can you share if there are any particular projects which promotes the idea of sustainable food system to the public? Thank you.
I mean, there's so many. I guess like some that are popping into my mind. I mentioned in my presentation, so URI has the co-op extension program, really, which is really the intersection with the public. So if you want to intersect more with that kind of work, I would go to, there's the URI's Master Gardener program. The co-op extension now has the food recovery program. So there's those kind of programs that are happening. We are launching, DEM really is leading the charge to launch a seafood marketing campaign right now. So helping to just spread the word about Rhode Island seafood and get your neighbors to maybe try some new products, those kind of things. Those are some of the projects I think that really come to mind. And the Food Policy Council is an amazing leader in this work, and that's a really great place to kind of really get involved. They have all these different working groups focused on different projects. So I think that's a great place for an individual to just try to first engage.
Great. That's a good resource for everybody. And thank you for the plug for URI and our programs, because they are excellent. Do we have time for one more question? I hope we do. Yes, we do. From Patrick Bauer, there seems to be an opportunity to link the need to keep Rhode Island farmland in agriculture and the rise of new entry farmers who need land. Can you comment on what plans there are in action to address this?
Yeah, so I think we already have some really incredible programs in place. And so really just centering investment and doubling down, I think, on these existing programs. One example is our local LASA. It's called our Local Agriculture and Seafood Act. It's a full act that has lots of different programs to support local food, but one part of it actually dedicates funding to new and beginning farmers, BIPOC farmers, small farmers, and helping them to really have the funding to invest in equipment, training, market development, those kind of things. It's a wonderful program, and we need to continue to center it as a tool for this. The other, I think, is this the other tool that we have. I also mentioned in my talk, which is our farmland preservation program. So the Agricultural Land Preservation Commission is doing really important work to buy development rights from farmers who are willing to sell it, so that they can ensure that their land remains in agriculture in perpetuity, whether it stays in their family or they sell it. So I think these are really important things to do, because Rhode Island has the highest farmland cost in the nation. It's $16,000 an acre. I think second to New Jersey, which is maybe 14,000. So we really, I think we really just need to kind of double down on some of these existing programs that we have.
Great, thank you. And you alluded to it earlier, but Governor McKee has talked about some great initiatives that he's trying to address some of the food sector challenges, including the fisheries, especially through the seafood wastewater plant, et cetera. So this has been great. I think at this point we do have to conclude. I'm sorry, Julie, I could talk to you all day. But once again, thank you. And thank you for joining us. For those of you in the audience, as you can see, you can ask questions of our speakers all day by accessing the URI Business Engagement Center YouTube and Twitter pages. If time allows, we'll be pulling the questions from the audience like we just did. And there'll be a lot of questions, unfortunately, that we won't be able to get to, but we will post the answers to any questions we receive on our website following the summit. So don't forget, when you post about the summit on social media, our hashtag, again, is RIFoodSummit22, hashtag RIFoodSummit22. At this point, we're going to take a 5-minute short break so everyone can stretch, refill on coffee, water, tea, and come back at 10:10 to hear about efforts being in natural products to address some of our most pressing issues. That's going to be a video we're about to show, and then we're going to go right into innovations in agriculture. So we'll talk to you in a few minutes. We'll be back at 10:10.
The earliest of times, ancient cultures, indigenous peoples, have used plants for medicinal purposes. If you come around here, what you're going to see here is another herb which you probably don't know about, but it's the Cuban version of oregano. It's called Cuban oregano. The leaves have been used by my mom and my grandma as a seasoning when they cook. And as you can see here, it's used in South America for sore throat, for treating coughs, congestion, and so on. So here you can see sugarcane, native to India, grown widely in the USA and also in South America, has been used as a topical antiseptic. There are other plants, for example, this plant here. It's called the Madagascar periwinkle, and it has actually provided us with 2 anti-cancer drugs, vincristine and vinblastine. And as you can see here, these compounds were isolated and have been developed into prescription anti-cancer drugs.
Yeah, Wi-Fi is not bad, but the only thing I cannot do the math.
Because of the extent.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I go home and pray that it's new. Think about 50,000 years ago when ancient man was eating a lot of plants, plant-based diet, roots and tubers and berries. Our genes expect plant-based diet. If you don't get that diet and you're moving towards more meat-based, inflammatory-based diet, then you're actually cheating yourself from the wonderful benefits that you can get from fruits and vegetables. The color in their diet, in many Americans' diet, is ketchup or mustard. Not that that's wrong, but the colors that I would want to see in your diet should be berries and fruits and vegetables and spices and herbs. Most of the world's population do not have access to a doctor or to medical care in the way that we regard Western medicine. And therefore, people in other parts of the world are always using plants. My interests are in evaluating these folklore, these medicines that have been used traditionally, and to put a modern research focus and find out, is this really true? If so, what's the active ingredient in that plant that's giving it its medicinal properties? After spending 5 years at UCLA, I started looking elsewhere for new challenges. And in looking at different schools, URI emerged from among many as a very small, unique, beautiful school where I could be in a great location, but at the same time, be in a school, in the College of Pharmacy, which has a very rich history in natural product chemistry. My lab is now fully functional. I have a great team of grad students and postdoc fellow. We have undergrad students who volunteer in the lab. So it's a perfect picture for me. I want to take our school into the next generation. I want to bring in the best, the brightest grad students, teach the brightest undergraduate students, and inspire them to continue the work that I'm doing today so that they can be the next generation of scientists.
Welcome back, everyone. For those of you just joining us, we are broadcasting live from URI's Narragansett Bay campus, where the snow is snowing, but not really sticking yet, thank goodness. Thank goodness also, we decided to do this event virtually. For those of you who just listened in, Navindra Seeram, Dr. Navindra Seeram, one of our natural products researchers, he will be on our next panel. His natural products lab is one of the highlights of URI, as is our medicinal garden. If you ever have an opportunity to come to campus, you can see some of the plants that are actually medicinal at the campus. So the next panel is called Innovations in Agriculture. It's being led by our own, when I say our own URI grad, Ken Ayers, Chief of the Division of Agriculture at Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. Ken, welcome, and welcome to all of our panelists.
Welcome. Glad to see you all. Looking forward to this upcoming panel. Just to lead into this a little bit, we have some esteemed colleagues who are going to talk to you. Dr. Neil Mattson, Professor, School of Integrative Plant Science, Horticulture at Cornell. Dr. Navindra Seeram, who you just heard from, Department of Biomedical and Pharmaceutical Sciences at the University of Rhode Island, Chair and Professor. And Nona Yahia, who is the CEO and co-founder of Vertical Harvest. When we think about the goals that we talked about earlier in the presentation that Julie outlined and others, 50 by 60 or 30 by 30, trying to achieve a more sustainably locally based food system, we have to consider the role of technology and innovation in agriculture. Rhode Island's a small state. We have to work with the characteristics that we have in the state, agriculture, environmental, and others. We don't think of a food system as just state-centric, but regional. In Rhode Island, there's a little bit over 1,000 farms. Farmers own about 10% of the land area of the state, but our area in production is much smaller than that. We are, in a sense, an urban state, even though we have large areas of urban land, but that's the characteristics of it, with a very large capital city taking up a lot of land in the middle of it. We have to embrace technology in agriculture to achieve the food system goals that we have. It's impossible to do so without that. Other small countries that have done so, Israel or the Netherlands, have demonstrated the value of doing so. The United States is the largest agricultural exporter in the world. Second is the Netherlands, 237 times smaller than the US, just 16 times bigger than Rhode Island, but the second largest agricultural exporter in the world. And of its land under production, 80% of it is in greenhouses, it's under glass. So that's the type of technology that we have to think about and embrace going forward, and at the same time do so with a sense of balance and maintaining a sense of place. We certainly don't advocate that all of agriculture become CEA or controlled environment, but we want to embrace the technology that allows us to be more productive per acre in this state. And not all of our land is used, or at least our farmland is used for growing food. 50% of the farmland in Rhode Island is nursery or sod or other crops that are non-edible, incredibly important to agriculture in the state. So that even diminishes further our land base and our capacity. But really, agriculture, when you think about it, is not just based upon farmland. CEA agriculture can be any place in the middle of an urban lot, in a brownfield, on a blacktop, on a rooftop. And that's the type of agriculture that we need to embrace, that embodies our potential to be more productive, to achieve the food system goals that we want to. We've all gone through the experience of COVID. We've recognized the challenges that have come about with the long supply chain that delivers food to New England, currently estimated to be only 10% of our land, of our food produced locally, and getting to that 30 or 50% is going to mean embracing the type of technology and innovation that you're going to hear about some more from our panelists and as happening at URI and other places. So without further ado, looking forward to what they have to say. And we will start off with Dr. Mattson.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm a professor and greenhouse extension specialist at Cornell University in New York State, and I direct our Controlled Environment Agriculture group. So as was talked about, CEA is this continuum from high tunnels, which would be like modified environment agriculture, growing crops under season extension, to greenhouses, to more sophisticated vertical farms. And it's a technology that's really scalable. It adapts well to both rural and urban settings. And one of the huge advantages of CEA is it allows crop production year round, which also means that we can produce a higher volume of crop in a smaller amount of space. When I looked at the space use efficiency of lettuce, for example, 1 acre greenhouse lettuce production can grow 20 to 50 times more lettuce than a field in California. So CEA allows us to grow locally year round in a consistent and reproducible way, which consumers really enjoy. The technology is also more water use efficient, and so it allows us to address some of the issues that we're seeing with conventional agriculture, which would be like water availability in the West Coast and climate change, for example. CEA is really interdisciplinary, and it involves a skill set that's different than traditional manufacturing or traditional farming. It includes skill sets including plant science or horticulture, engineering, so being able to control the greenhouse environment, information science, being able to collect the data about what's going on in the facility and trying to optimize the facility, food science, so that we can maintain the quality, the nutrition, and the food safety of our product, and then economics and marketing, so that we can sell the product and be profitable. I've been part of a project that was funded by the USDA to look at workforce development in CEA. And we began that process by doing a process that's called DACUM, which is designing a curriculum where we talk to dozens of expert practitioners in controlled environment agriculture to determine the types of jobs that are available in CEA and what are the skill sets that those workers need and what are the pathways to training those workers. And in some of those conversations, common jobs that we have in CEA are things like assistant growers and head growers, integrated pest management specialists, food safety and quality assurance, people involved in packing and shipping, marketing and sales, and then farm operations management. So the CEA operations employ a tremendous amount of people. They have a diverse skill set. And in talking with the industry, we find that there's a range of pathways to achieving these jobs. So some they're willing to take anyone that's available to work and put them to work and teach them what they need to know. In other instances, having a 2-year associate's degree or 4-year degree is important. So maybe I will close there for starters and happy to continue the discussion after everybody else gives their introduction.
Can you hear me? Yes. Well, thank you for having me on this panel and to be a part of the Food Summit. It's a beautiful morning here. I'm in the Kingston campus, looking out at our medicinal garden. Not much of a medicinal garden at this time of the year. But if you're wondering why a pharmacy professor is here on a Food Summit panel, the answer is very simple. As Hippocrates said almost 2,500 years ago, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food, and that has not changed. Here at URI, we think big, and in the College of Pharmacy, of course, we're looking into the discovery of drugs and medicines, but as you've heard from the video, our natural product research here at URI is second to none. Our group, a small army of undergraduates and graduate students and junior scientists like young postdoctoral fellows and faculty, we come together and we take a very holistic view at looking at foods, primarily plant-based foods, which include colorful fruits and vegetables, grains, and their derived products. So you could imagine dark chocolate, coffee, green tea, beverages like red wine, and so on. And what we try to do is to understand, of course, we know that plant-based foods are nutritious for us. primarily because they have good fiber, good carbohydrates, sometimes good sugars, good fats and lipids, and good proteins. But beyond these macronutrients and micronutrients like vitamins and minerals, we ask a very simple question. What in these foods are medicinal for us beyond the macronutrients and the micronutrients? So our research here at URI in the College of Pharmacy, we have isolated and identified a large number of phytonutrients, which are plant antioxidants, and many of them are anti-inflammatory agents, which would give you a health benefit beyond basic nutrition if you'll consume these foods. So for that, for sure, a lot of chemistry that happens. And then we try to understand at a deeper level what happens when we consume these foods and they get into our body. Are the foods nutritious for us? Are they interacting with our gut microbiota? And how can they impart, again, these biological or potential health benefits? I don't have the time right now to tell you about all of the research that happens here in the College of Pharmacy in the Natural Products Lab, but I'd just like to highlight maybe one crop, one agricultural crop, which I think is pertinent today to this panel. This crop is maple. Why is maple important? Well, maple is indeed a unique Eastern North American crop. The plants are only found here in the Northeastern region, in the New England region, and in New York and other states, up in Canada, in Quebec. But maple is an important agricultural crop for many reasons. One, it is of intensive cultural and economical significance to this region of the world. So being here at URI, being a professor, it's natural for us to want to do natural product research on a niche natural product, such as maple, which is found here. We have done a lot of work with maple. It's an important crop. We want to keep the plants erect. We want to make sure that people understand that the maple syrup is a natural product. It's unlike refined sugar or high fructose corn syrup. We were funded by the United States Department of Agriculture. We have a fantastic website. It's URI Maple. If you were to type that into your search bar, you could check out some of the work we've been doing. But again, good forestry management, sustainable agriculture, yields a natural product that is nutritious for you. It is a sweetener, but again, tons of research that happens here at URI. And I look forward to maybe taking some of your questions, if you have any, when we get to the Q&A part of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Navindra and Nona. And once Nona finishes up, we're going to have some time for Q&A. So thank you. Take it away, Nona.
Thanks, Ken. And I'm so happy to be here with these esteemed panelists at this food summit. I'm Nona Yahya, co-founder and CEO of Vertical Harvest Farms. I'm an architect by trade and an entrepreneur, and I've always believed that architecture can be a powerful vehicle for change. It's with this belief that 10 years ago, following my passion for food, and Navindra, that was great to hear all the food research that you're doing, and my experiences growing up with a brother with disabilities, that I, along with a very talented group of professionals, began building a business to address key issues in our community here in Wyoming, and it's snowing here too. We were dedicated to the notion that sustainable communities are successful ones. And so our mission started with a simple mandate: responsibly grow as much food as possible, provide as many quality jobs as possible, and do both year round. This mission led us to become vertical farmers, designing and operating our flagship farm here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, the first of its kind in North America, as a 3-story hydroponic greenhouse that grows the equivalent of 10 acres. It also provides meaningful employment and career development for people with intellectual and physical disabilities. 5 years into our operation, we have seen firsthand how food can have a profound impact on the community and the people in it. But what started as a grassroots effort was always couched in global issues. We were keenly aware of the UN warning that the world must produce 70% more food by the middle of the century. That's 15 to 30 years from now. Not just our grandkids or our kids' lifetime. This is our lifetime. And this year, the UN has indicated we're in a code red for humanity. This is a clear challenge, but equally a profound opportunity to create new models that exist at the intersection of food security, urban redevelopment, and the environment. We see our prototype farm as a tool that has the potential to address all three. In addition to this, states, as Ken talked about this, earlier in the panel, are recognizing the benefits of localizing the food system. This initiative not only relies on increasing the amount of food produced, but on climate-smart agricultural practices that recognize the importance of working farmland protection. This effort will take targeted and fundamental changes to the food system, including local, state, and federal investment. It's high time for point solutions to give way to systemic and resilient ones. Point solutions alleviate symptoms, but don't address root causes. They only solve one problem at a time. And we have a unique opportunity to utilize food to solve multiple problems simultaneously. And if we don't address root causes, we won't be able to stop the collapse of our natural and social systems. Even consumers understand that social and environmental issues are linked. And then as the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from the UN indicate, that to make any real headway, you have to design solutions that make progress against multiple challenges simultaneously. To that end, food is the strongest connection to human and environmental health. And we fervently believe at Vertical Harvest that food will be the defining issue of the 21st century. The last year, what we've all been through together has exposed how fraught and fragile our food system is. We are in need of a great food transformation. There are no silver bullet solutions, unfortunately. This transformation will not happen without widespread, multi-sector, multi-level action that leverages innovation for systemic change. CEA, as Neil quite eloquently described, is one of those innovations. It allows for optimized growing conditions, incredible efficiency with valuable resources like water and land, is less harmful with no runoff, and critically allows farmers to grow anywhere. And vertical CEA allows us to optimize how much food we can grow in limited areas. By going up, we're increasing a valuable surface area for cultivation. These are the fundamentals of CEA today, but we believe that it is in the promise of scale that will enable CEA to contribute a substantial realignment of food system priorities and moves the industry beyond a point solution. If we can create a network of farms that bolster local food economies at scale, we then can participate in the creation of a fair and sustainable food system. At scale, we can pursue creative partnerships across business, policy, and science to spur action for change and increased food access. At scale, we can reconnect our cities with food, quality food that is grown, processed, and distributed within our communities, which is why our mission at Vertical Harvest is a big and audacious one, to help the planet, people, and public grow well. We grow better food and futures where our food becomes the medium to make positive change. Before Vertical Harvest, our unexpected farmers were bagging groceries and washing dishes. Now we all have to start somewhere, but now they are leaders and trailblazers in the fastest growing green CEA industry. This opportunity has created a sea change of perception for people with disabilities. Our model locates farms on underutilized land in low-income, low-access urban neighborhoods. We hire from underrepresented communities who struggle to find consistent employment at a livable wage. We've also created a new type of civic infrastructure, like a public library or community center, one that reflects a community's values and is responsive to its needs and wants. Driven by our social impact, we are building a new type of mission critical infrastructure in terms of both the hard physical assets, the buildings, the growth systems, the technology, and the soft infrastructure of social work, community and population health, green job training, shoring up local food supply chains, and bolstering the entire local food system to become resilient. Food is the nexus of about everything we truly value, and we're just getting started. We have a plan to build 10 farms in the next 5 years. We're very excited to be working with the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation to bring our model to your state. Our goal is to create a network of farms that serve locally, support regionally, and scale nationally to maximize our potential impact. Right now, we're experiencing a converging economic, climate, and health crises that are rooted in people's access to healthy food, resilient, nourishing jobs, and fair housing. We're incredibly honored to be part of this session at URI and to be launching this effort in Rhode Island. So I'm really excited for the discussion and taking your questions. Thank you.
Fantastic, all three of you. Thank you so much. So we're happy to take questions from the audience, which if they, as they come up to me, I'll read them off. And we've also got some pre-canned questions we're happy to ask the audience. And I'll start off with one of them. Food that's grown in controlled environment agriculture, some of you touched on that. Still as nutritious as field-grown food? Would someone like to talk about that?
Yeah, we actually, thank you for that question. We talked about this, Neil. So Neil, you go ahead, please.
Yes, as part of our National Science Foundation project, we worked with colleagues to look specifically at leafy greens and the nutrition of leafy greens compared to field-grown, greenhouse hydroponically grown, or indoor hydroponically grown. And what we found is for the nutritional measures that we studied, there was no difference between greenhouse and field. And in some cases, indoor grown could be higher in nutrition. So essentially, the plants are given the same nutrients that they take up by their roots. The plants still take up light, whether it comes from electricity or from the sun or from both. And we don't see any negative effects on the nutrition of the plant themselves. Navindra, do you have anything to add to that?
Just to clarify, though, in terms of, and the question I get all the time too is, are foods different, conventionally grown versus organically grown and now hydroponically grown? Usually, and in terms of the nutrition, in terms of the macronutrients and micronutrients, they're constant, as Neil just established, but there's secondary metabolites, or these phytonutrients that they produce many times if the plant is under stress. Pathological stress, a fungal attack or bacterial attack or drought or environmental stresses, the plant is going to fluctuate in the way it produces some of the phytonutrients. So that's not known as yet, whether the secondary metabolites or these chemical compounds called phytonutrients would change. But for sure, as Neil just said, the macronutrients, the nutritional value of the food won't change, will not.
And I'll add on to that. There is some work now of using essentially stress environmental manipulation. So it can expose the plants with, say, high blue light near the end of harvest, for example, to increase antioxidant content. So
here you go.
Nana, you talked about this a little bit. There are broad social and environmental reasons for CEA agriculture and innovations in general, and those are just as valuable to the productive advantages. But from a entirely production standpoint, and Neil, perhaps you can touch on this as well, compare conventional agriculture to CE agriculture in terms of per acre production of vegetables.
Well, I'll leave it to Neil to compare the traditional versus the CEA, but the benefits of controlled environment agriculture are many, and what it really does is reduce vulnerabilities, right? So you can be very efficient. What we like to say is our plants are the most pampered plants you'll ever meet. They want for nothing. They're sitting pretty in their skyrise apartment, getting fed exactly what they want, getting exactly how much light they want. And what we're doing is creating a system that can be farm to fork within 24 hours. So even, with the quality of the produce that we're able to produce within a greenhouse system, we're delivering the produce to the customer, at the peak of its nutritional and taste value. And I think that's a very important element when you're comparing, traditional agriculture. We grow with lettuce, most of us, wherever you are in the United States, in the middle of winter, lettuce has traveled from the salad bowl in California to get to your plate, right? So it's spent a long time on the truck, and as it spends that time on the truck, it loses its nutritional value. And I think that's a key. There are a lot of, and Neil can talk about the the comparisons in terms of how much we can grow. But I think that's really important to understand, is that we've really shortened, the distribution model and localized it. And there are multiple benefits for doing that. But because we're an urban model, we're bringing the farm back to the city. We're farming in places that weren't, available for farming prior to CEA. And we're able, for example, in our first farm in Maine, on a half of an acre, we're able to implement 200,000 square feet of growing capability using vertical technology and dense growing techniques. But I'll pass it over to Neil for more of the mathematical equivalencies.
Ooh, I have a really cool number. So I don't have all the numbers of, say, an acre of greenhouses, 30 acres of tomatoes, but what I have is economic value data from the USDA Census of Agriculture. So they found that an acre of field production can grow about $4,400 per acre of wholesale farm gate value. And an acre of greenhouse production produces almost $300,000 per acre. So again, that's wholesale farm gate value. So just the economic return that you can get in a structure where you can grow year round and really optimize crop production is tremendous.
That's a great statistic. Thank you, Neil. I'm going to be calling on you for that one.
I think we have a question from the audience, but one thing I want to say up front, I think important to all of us, and I know several of us have experienced, is that CEA is not for everyone, and not every farm has either the land or the desire to, work in a large greenhouse or put one up on their property. One of the principles that we embody, and I know you've mentioned this, Nona, in previous conversations with Neil, is that we're not looking to displace agriculture. In fact, these are integrated type systems which support and uplift farmers of all time and often work with existing farmers, conventional or not. And I think that's an important principle. But let me just also get to a question that from the audience. What are some of the major barriers preventing more urban farms from popping up in Rhode Island and cities like Pawtucket and Providence? How can we solve them? Let me start off a little bit here. Land access is one of them. One of the things that I think we are pretty progressive about in Rhode Island is supporting organizations like Southside Community Land Trust who have that as their mission. There are, I don't know the exact number, 40 to 50 urban gardens in Providence alone, but access to land is really the most critical part of that. And supporting, either the purchase or the renting of land by those organizations. The state has, in fact, put our farmland protection money, which you typically think of going towards a 50-acre farm in a rural part of the state, towards actually protecting urban lots in Providence, half acre to an acre size. We buy the development rights to those lots. That's pretty unusual. When we buy the development rights to those lots, meaning we protect it just like another large farm, that allows Southside Community Land Trust or someone else to buy that property in fee at a much reduced price, similar like a young farmer buying a property that's been protected. That's one of the tools that we use to achieve that. But progressive city policies are part of that. Providence is very progressive, and that's one of the reasons that we see such a growth. But more can be done, and that's an important part of meeting the food security goals of the state. Any additional questions from the audience? If not, I would ask Nona to maybe, or Neil, to talk a little bit more about the relationship between farmers, existing farmers, and CEA agriculture, and making sure that there's not a feeling that it's one versus the other.
I think the priority is the local food system in all of the aspects, right? So as you said, Ken, CEA can only supplement traditional agriculture. We don't try to, with vertical harvest, compete with local farmers. We grow different crop types to be able to support what farmers grow, and so that we can create kind of a holistic food landscape, right? And I think that's really important to understand. But as it's snowing in Maine and in Wyoming, it is hard to grow, fresh produce in the middle of winter, and that's a capability of CEA. But I think that what is really important is to understand that farmers from indoor and or outdoor farmers are all necessary parts of the local food economy and play critical roles. And we can do this together by supporting each other. And I'm just excited about the CEA industry and the momentum that it's gaining to shine a light on the importance of the local food system.
Right.
And I would add on to that, by and large, we're not displacing local farmers. We're here to support each other. A rising tide floats all boats, in a sense. Really, the opportunity is there. Americans eat 1.5 servings of vegetables per day. We're supposed to eat a minimum of 3 servings of vegetables per day. So if we could just get everybody to double their vegetable intake with access to fresh, nutritious food, that would do tremendous things, I think, for the health of all Americans.
So we need to wrap up to move on to some other things. I thank you so much, esteemed colleagues, for what you've said. Glad to know that the type of research that's happening at URI through Navinda's work, the fact that vertical harvest is doing great work in Wyoming, and thinking about Rhode Island, the work that Neil's doing in New York to further the research and CEA agriculture. So thank you so much for this, and we'll look forward to moving on to the rest of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Neil, Navindra, Nona, Ken. The update on the weather forecast is the snow is really coming down and starting to stick here at the Graduate School of Oceanography. And I will look forward to having maple syrup on everything, because maple is apparently good for me. So that's exciting. So as a reminder, as we transition to our next panel, you can ask questions of our speakers, as you just saw, through our Business Engagement Center YouTube and Twitter pages. If time allows, we will be pulling questions from the audience to pose to our speakers. And there will likely be a lot of questions that we can't get to, and we apologize for that, but we will be answering those questions on our website following the summit. And don't forget to post, if you are on social media, are using the hashtag RIFoodSummit22. That is hashtag RIFoodSummit22. We're going to take a short 5-minute break so everyone can stretch and refill on coffee or water. And during this break, please enjoy this video, which is about URI's Department of Fisheries, Animal, and Veterinary Sciences. The video showcases some of our blue economy activities, which is going to be a subject you're going to hear a lot about as the governor and the commerce team put together some blue economy priorities. So here's the video of our Fisheries, Animal, and Veterinary Sciences Department.
We've tried to make this a program that students are going to get good education, well-trained, hands-on experience, and be able to enter the job market when they graduate.
Most of the students are they just like to be in the water. They like the marine environment, they like fishing, they just like hands-on courses, and they don't have a very clear idea of what kind of careers they want to do. And as they progress through the major, I think that having all those different experiences, they kind of find their passion.
I thought we were going to take a lot of core classes, and we ended up going on field trips my entire first semester, which was really cool. We got to go around Rhode Island, look at a bunch of different facilities, and we actually got to be involved in what we were doing.
And so all the classes, they all have labs. And that means, people have to get out. They have to put their feet in the water. They have to get fish scales on their hands. They have to touch gear. They have to understand how it works.
The first year or two, the coursework allows students to explore courses that they're interested in, and from there sort of choose their direction. And in order to facilitate that, we have faculty that have expertise in a lot of different areas.
You can do research, you can do farming, you can do sustainability.
We've got a full array of finfish aquaculture. We've got an array of shellfish aquaculture.
And I think advising is a critical component of this, because the program is small enough that we can spend time with the students learning what their interests are and matching them with advisors.
I've actually made some really good connections with all my professors. I've found that they're very knowledgeable and that they're all very friendly.
They're always available and always willing to help, and excited to hear about what I'm doing in my research.
We have a local system here that we can study in our backyard, but but we also have opportunities for students to go abroad.
J-term is the winter intersession course that is held between the semesters. For most students that have taken the course, they basically talk about it being a transformative experience, being able to see the world and the like.
Whether you want to be a scientist, a researcher, an entrepreneur, a businessman, a teacher, the possibilities are endless, and it's an industry that's just craving for young people like us to step up and take those opportunities.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that video about our department, the URI Department of Fisheries, Animal, and Veterinary Sciences, better known as FAVS. You'll actually be hearing from Dr. Terry Bradley, a faculty member in this department, on the next panel, which is entitled Expanding Shellfish Aquaculture and Fisheries in Rhode Island. This panel is being led by Diane Lynch. She is chair of the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, and I'd like to welcome Diane and the panelists.
Thank you. Thanks, Catherine. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be the moderator today of this panel. We're going to be talking about innovations in aquaculture and in shellfish and in finfish. We have 5 panelists, including myself today, and each one of us is going to take about 5 minutes to talk about who we are and the work that we're doing. At the end of the session, there will be time to take questions from the audience. So if you do have comments or questions while you're listening, please feel free to enter them into the chat, and we'll get to them when we're done with all the presentations. We're going to start with Bob Ballou. Bob is currently running the Seafood Marketing Collaborative, which is part of the Department of Environmental Management in Rhode Island. Bob, would you like to take it away?
Yes, thank you so much, Diane. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be part of this awesome panel. I plan to focus my remarks on 2 key programs in Rhode Island that are aimed at enhancing opportunities to access Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island and thereby strengthen our local food system. The first is a new statewide seafood marketing campaign that's being launched as we speak. And the second is a new direct sale licensing program that was launched about 2 years ago on an interim basis in response to the pandemic and has since been codified as a permanent program. Before I jump into these 2 programs, I'd just like to provide some brief context and content on Rhode Island seafood. Rhode Island produces a lot of great seafood, both from our wild harvest fisheries and our aquaculture industry. The Port of Galilee is one of the largest on the East Coast and among the top 10 nationwide. Total annual landings in Rhode Island are about 83 million pounds with an associated total ex-vessel value of about $75 million. Our largest fisheries by volume are squid, quahogs, whiting, skates, butterfish, scup, Jonah crab, and mackerel. Our largest fisheries by value are squid, sea scallops, lobster, summer flounder, quahogs, butterfish, whiting, Jonah crab, and scup. Our hallmark is our diversity, with over 100 species landed and farmed commercially every year in Rhode Island. Species like monkfish, black sea bass, herring, whelk, bluefish, red hake, dogfish, and oysters are among those species that may not make our top 10 list, but they are landed and farmed in significant amounts. While most of Rhode Island's seafood production is generated by our wild harvest fisheries, our aquaculture industry contributes a large and increasing share of our annual production. Most of our farming operations involve oysters, with an annual production of over 6 million oysters and a farm gate value of over $4 million. Most Rhode Island seafood is exported. That's a good thing in terms of our ability to meet out-of-state demand and generate impressive economic returns, but it has an impact on our local food system since most seafood consumed in Rhode Island is imported. The impacts were really laid bare during the pandemic when the long out-of-state supply chains broke down and our fishery and local food system suffered as a result. With a view to righting the ship, or at least helping to nudge it in the right direction, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, in partnership with the Rhode Island Seafood Marketing Collaborative, has embarked on 2 new programs, both aimed at expanding and strengthening our local food system. I'll speak to both of them right now. The first is a new year-long seafood marketing and promotion campaign aimed at increasing the consumption and value of Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island. The program is being supported with a $300,000 Saltonstall Kennedy Grant Award to DEM on behalf of the collaborative. We are very proud recipients of this prestigious grant. The campaign will focus on the enormous benefits to be derived by steering more Rhode Island seafood to Rhode Island markets for sale by Rhode Island retailers and consumption by Rhode Island consumers. Major themes include the vast appeal of Rhode Island seafood and the benefits of Rhode Island consumers supporting Rhode Island harvesters and providers of Rhode Island seafood with their purchases and consumption habits. Our game plan is to stimulate the local market and increase local demand in 3 ways. First, by promoting Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island. That is, heralding its virtues. It's really an easy sell. Rhode Island seafood is delicious, diverse, and readily available year-round. It's nutritious. It's affordable, at least to some extent, depending on the species. It's extracted from well-managed and sustainable fisheries and farming operations. It supports our local fishing, farming, and seafood industry, and thereby supports a sustainable and resilient local food system. It serves as an engine for our local economy, supporting local sales and serving as a draw for our hospitality and tourism industry, and creating growth opportunities within our local seafood supply chain. And finally, Rhode Island seafood sold and consumed in Rhode Island has a low carbon footprint and is thus climate friendly. Our second major aim is to promote opportunities to access Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island. There are really many opportunities, including retail markets and restaurants, aggregators and home delivery services, and commercial harvesters and farmers engaged in direct sales at the docks and at farmers markets. I'll speak to that in just a second. Our new program will focus on steering Rhode Island consumers whose interests in accessing Rhode Island seafood are piqued on where to go and how to buy, prepare, and cook the food they obtain, the seafood they obtain. And the third and final leg of our 3-legged stool will be engaging Rhode Island seafood consumers via social media and other means, further promoting our campaign using consumers themselves as the vehicle. Our campaign will invest heavily in paid media and promotion at point of sale. We will establish a centralized hub with integrated web and phone-based platforms for accessing Rhode Island seafood in Rhode Island. And we will continue to rely on the trademarked Rhode Island seafood brand as a way to promote and distinguish Rhode Island seafood products in the marketplace. We are currently administering contracts and putting the final pieces of the program in place. We had a soft launch a few weeks ago and are now eyeing March 1 for a full blast off. So stay tuned. The second program I'll speak to this morning, very briefly, is Rhode Island's new direct sale dealer licensing program. The program was enacted in April of 2020 via an emergency rule and codified at the end of 2020 as a permanent licensing program. The new direct sale dealer license authorizes commercial fishermen in Rhode Island to sell certain species of finfish and to sell and transport for sale live lobsters, crabs, and whelk directly to consumers and to licensed seafood retailers from the vessel on which they were harvested. The license supports the development of new local supply chains for Rhode Island seafood. Under the program, finfish subject to direct sale may include any legally harvested species except striped bass and except for all what are called histamine-producing finfish species, and that includes bluefish and tuna, among others. The finfish must be sold whole, or they may be headed and gutted and bled, but no filleting or other processing may be done dockside from the vessel. And that one issue right there, which is important from a regulatory standpoint, pursuant to FDA requirements and Rhode Island Department of Health requirements, is a bit of a bugaboo. And we might get into some discussion on that later during this session. I'll end by just noting that the last numbers we have available for that new direct sale dealer license are that 77 licenses had been issued, 21 of them were active. Some 42,000 pounds were landed and sold via that direct sale license, with about a $143,000 value associated with total value associated with those sales. And the major species that were the most popular for direct sale included lobsters, crabs, scup, black sea bass, summer flounder or fluke, and tautog. So that's a very quick overview of the two programs that I think speak best to advancing our interests in promoting and nurturing our local food system vis-a-vis seafood. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Diane. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Wealth of information there. I'm sure we'll have some questions at the end about finding local seafood. Our next speaker is Perry Rasso. Some of you saw him in the video that we just saw before this. Perry is the owner of the Matunic Oyster Farm. Perry, would you like to take it away?
Thank you. I'd like to talk about our next project here, which is the Matunic Shellfish Research and Innovation Center. We are terming it the Smart Hatchery. We're going to incorporate some new technologies that are being used around the world, as well as some experimenting with some novel methods of growing shellfish. And I'm excited about this. It'll not only provide a place for the growing number of oyster farmers in Rhode Island to be able to purchase seed, as well as supply my own farm with seed, but we'll also be able to explore the possibilities of spawning alternative species, native species that we can hopefully grow here and develop markets for, or some that already have markets that we're not able to access, purchase seed for, such as bay scallops. So we'll be using some innovative methods of growing algae, some continuous algae producing systems, and some flow-through larvae tank systems, which will allow us to increase the density of larvae that we can produce in these conical larvae tanks. And we've worked with we've been talking with local companies like Hanna Instruments to develop new technology that will help assist, hopefully increase the efficiency and production of shellfish seed, specifically oysters right now, but looking at other species, seaweeds, and perhaps razor clams and bay scallops as well. And one thing that I'm really excited about that hasn't been developed is actually dosing the tank with algae by determining how much algae is present in the tank. And when these larvae clear the algae out of the water, they get dosed with algae. A lot of hatcheries will just time it and pour the algae directly in with like a 5-gallon bucket, and it's not as scientific of as approach. So if we can optimize that, we'll optimize the survival and growth. It'll also be the place where we can connect with other universities in the state, URI, Roger Williams, to do research, provide a research facility for students there. So I'm, looking forward to that. Another step for our business. One of the keys to my business has been to become as horizontally integrated as possible. Starting with the oyster farm and then being able to retail through the restaurant, and also growing the organic vegetables for the restaurant, and now being able to produce our own seed, one of oyster seed, and that is been one of the issues with oyster farmers in the past. From the suppliers, because they might have a problem in their hatchery. So optimizing the hatchery and being able to have a reliable source for our seed is, you know, our you know, next big project here. I'm looking forward to it.
Very great work. We're next going to hear from Fred Matera. Fred is the Executive Director of the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island and a long practicing fisherman. Fred, it's all yours. Fred, you need to unmute.
Sorry.
Nope.
Appreciate the opportunity to give an overview of the fishing community here in the state of Rhode Island and the types of fishing and some of the programs that we have. I'm a retired fisherman after 40 years fishing out of Point Judith and executive director of the Commercial Fisheries Research Fund. So we are the ocean state, and as Governor McKee expressed in his State of the State address this week, the calamari state. You know, Rhode Island may be a small state, but it really represents a vast fishing community as bottom trawlers, scallop dredgers, lobster and crabs, gill netters, fish potters, shell fishing, aquaculture, party charter, rod and reel. From Rhode Island ports such as Point Judith, Newport, Sakonnet, Westerly, and Narragansett Bay. Whereas fishers, we have spent considerable amount of our time harvesting seafood from the ocean. We land over 100 species of fish to a myriad of shoreside dealers and the top nationwide processors. Many species are underutilized and undervalued, yet abundant and sustainable. We need to heighten consumer awareness of our local caught seafood and promote healthy and nutritious seafood. I want to go back and reference the last economic impact study that was done in the state's fishery in 2016, which is very similar to today. The landings of today, with the exception of 2020, during the pandemic, when Rhode Island DEM initiated a successful pilot program allowing direct sales of fin fish at the dock. And in 2021 was implemented, as Bob Ballou had stated earlier. The Rhode Island fisheries and seafood sector spans commercial fishing, shell fishing, fishing charters, processing, professional service firms, retail and wholesale seafood dealers, including importers and exporters, service and supply firms, and tackle shops. These 428 firms generate 3,150 jobs and $538 million of gross sales. This is substantial revenue that's been generated throughout the state and continues to be generated. At this Commercial Fishery Center here, we have promoted a way to improve market prices and landings and address food insecurity throughout our state. And it's called a seafood distribution program. We buy seafood at a fair market price from dealers and fishermen and distribute to 6 Rhode Island community partners for free to feed families in need. Seafood is supplied by 15 dealers and fishermen, and in 16 months, we have distributed 140,000 pounds of seafood, serving 93,000 meals. This is an extremely very rewarding program, and now we are seeking long-term support from the state. Thank you.
Good overview of everything, including seafood distribution. Our next panelist is Terry. Terry Bradley is a professor in the College of Environmental and Life Sciences, and I think he was also in the video that was before this panel. Terry, floor is yours.
Thanks, Anne. So as Perry and Bob pointed out, shellfish clearly has been the focus of aquaculture in the marine environment in Rhode Island, but there are a lot of opportunities for finfish aquaculture. Of the seafood that's been consumed worldwide and in the US, over 51% is farm raised currently. that's going to increase every year. There's increased consumer demand, and with that, the need is going to increase, and aquaculture is going to be a major part of meeting that. On the GSO campus, we have been doing research on a number of aspects of finfish culture. And our focus is on land-based recirculating aquaculture systems. We're not talking about cage culture because that's not conducive to Rhode Island. But with land-based aquaculture systems, you're actually raising fish in land-based systems in which the water is recirculated up to 99%. That water is then treated to remove metabolites, solids, and then it's
your sound. Still not. Maybe try one more time. Sorry, folks. We just want to make sure that we can hear him. We'll see. Terry, you want to try one other? You want to try one other approach in your settings? I'm not sure if we should, in your StreamYard settings, see if your audio is working. Your mic is on. Sorry, folks. This should only take a minute. Is that you, Terry?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, sorry about that. So with farm raised, a lot of states are capitalizing on this. So the state of Maine is really going big on aquaculture and land-based systems. There are 2 farms that are going in there that hope to produce about 200,000 metric tons of Atlantic salmon a year. Atlantic Sapphire is located in Florida, and they're raising Atlantic salmon in Florida. And they're also hoping to produce over 200,000 metric tons, which would essentially meet the needs of the U.S. consumer. So the university has established a public-private partnership with the company Greenfins, which is located in Rhode Island. And the purpose is to look at developing techniques to raise fish in Rhode Island in land-based systems. We think Rhode Island is a great candidate for this. It's got lots of opportunity, and we think land-based finfish aquaculture can become a really important part of the blue economy. It's a great opportunity for students at the university. It's a great opportunity for research. And we think it's a great opportunity for creating jobs in the state. We've been focusing on 2 different species, and they're both high-end species. One is the yellowtail kingfish, and that's commonly known as hamachi. You may have seen it for sushi fish. It's also hiramasu, but it's a high-end fish. We're also focusing on mahi-mahi. You've all probably had mahi-mahi. It's a very well-known local fish. And we found that with mahi-mahi, it's got one of the fastest growth rates we've ever seen. We've been able to take fish from egg all the way up to plate size. And we can take a mahi and get about 10 to 15 pounds of growth in a mahi in a year under aquaculture conditions. So we think it's a really outstanding candidate for producing fish in Rhode Island. The other thing that I really want to point out is that, this is sustainable aquaculture. It's environmentally friendly. It's not a real problem. So the research at the university has progressed to the point where Greenfins is ready to commercialize. The next step is to try to put a land-based facility in Rhode Island, and they're looking at sites right now. Attributes that make Rhode Island a great candidate for aquaculture is 1, it's centrally located. We've got major markets, Boston, New York, DC, Philadelphia, all within easy range. So we're able to really reduce that carbon footprint of the transport and provide fresh fish to people. The other thing, it's got abundant quality water. So we've got very good quality water in Rhode Island and lots of coastline. And again, it doesn't take a very large footprint for this. And we're not utilizing ocean space. We're utilizing land-based areas. And then the other thing that I'd really like to point out too is we've got an educated workforce from Rhode Island. We've got the university, the expertise at the university. So it really makes for a perfect match here. And the other thing, the last thing I'd like to point out is that it's an ESG business. So it really fits in with what the state is trying to do with the blue economy. And we think it's got lots of potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. Very interesting work. I'm going to be the last panelist here. I'm going to take a few minutes, take my moderator hat off, and talk to you a little bit about the work that the Food Policy Council is also doing in the seafood sector. I'm going to take it pretty briefly because we are actually running out of time. But I wanted to talk about two areas that the Food Policy Council has been really active in the last few years. For those of you that don't know the Food Policy Council, we're a network organization. We have representatives from across the food system, and we work on a wide range of projects about environmental sustainability of our food system and equity and economic strength. In particular, in the seafood sector, Bob did a good job, and I think Fred did too, of describing how important this sector is and how big it is, and how much of our locally landed seafood is actually exported. And part of that export is the industrial supply chain that we participate in that's quite complex. But part of it is that we've had a long-standing issue in the state. We don't have enough wastewater treatment infrastructure in our state to enable us to process any more seafood. And this constraint has been going on for 1 or 2 decades. And it's a difficult, it's not a sexy problem, wastewater treatment, but it's certainly a difficult problem to solve. It requires a lot of collaboration, site selection, technology, et cetera. And this is an area where we've been really happy to partner with the Department of Environmental Management and Commerce and the Governor's Office and the Infrastructure Bank, and really pull a team together and help figure out where we can add infrastructure so that seafood processors, the ones that we have, can continue to process, can continue to grow their processing, and perhaps we can even attract more processors. And again, this is all about local demand and increasing the amount of capacity that we have in our local system. So that's one ongoing project that we've been involved in for several years and will continue to be involved in for the next few years. The other big area that we work in is in market channel development. So you heard from Bob and from Fred about 2 different channels. One is the direct sales channel, which is just getting off the ground. And the other one is fishermen providing their seafood to communities in need, which is what I'll call, for lack of a better word, the emergency food channel. And both of these are distribution channels that are fairly new in the state and that require technical assistance and resources. And the Food Policy Council has been really happy to provide USDA funding to promote and work on those teams and support the staff and do marketing for them. So that's something that we hope will continue. It gets more local seafood into the families and the communities that need it, and certainly off to a good start. So that's, I think I'm going to keep it really brief. We want to be able to take a few questions from the audience. So I am going to open it up now and see if we have any in the chat. And if not, okay, we do have one from Hero. And the question is, where would be good candidates for locating land-based aquaculture in Rhode Island? Excellent question. And I think I'm gonna send that over to Terry.
Yeah. One of the nice things about land-based aquaculture and what's been done in California and several other areas is using brownfield sites. So as long as you can have reasonable water quality, you can look at brownfield sites. So previously industrialized sites that are not suitable for housing or for schools or public use are a great site for aquaculture. So as I said, Greenfinch has been looking around in the state, particularly in Rhode Island, focused on that, but also in Connecticut and a little further north. But brownfield sites are a great location for this, as well as new sites. But it doesn't take a huge footprint to produce this. You just need to have access to seawater. One other just quick point is there's actually a group in Connecticut that is based inland, and they make their own seawater. And that's another option, is that you can make your own seawater from freshwater, which would eliminate having to have coastal access.
Interesting. So there's really no constraint on putting one of these facilities in an urban area?
No, there isn't.
Interesting. Any other questions from the audience? Here we go from Bradley. What are the prospects for bringing aquaculture to the headwaters of the Narragansett Bay? So we're talking now, just for our audience, aquaculture, not land-based aquaculture, but water-based aquaculture. And I think maybe Perry, do you want to answer that question?
Sure. Headwaters, I'm not clear on what specifically that would mean.
Headwaters. I don't know what headwaters are either.
So there is plenty of aquaculture going on in Narragansett Bay. Back 130 years ago, about 30% of Narragansett Bay was oyster farms. They did it a little bit more passive, a lot more passively than we do it now, which is more intensive. But there is, I don't know the number, but there's 80 farms in Rhode Island, and I think over half of them are in Narragansett Bay, and it's probably where the greatest potential for growth is in Narragansett Bay for the shellfish aquaculture industry. So I think there is, even more potential if we're talking about, the mouth of the bay, or even outside of that, even south of that. There's plenty of potential for seaweed aquaculture and mussel aquaculture as well that has really not been tapped. Yeah, that's
great. Thank you. I'm getting a signal that we are running out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up. If there are additional questions in the chat, we will try to get back to them afterwards. But thank you so much. Those were excellent panelists, and I'm going to hand it back to Catherine, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, Perry, Terry, Fred, and Bob. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to spend with us. It was great hearing about all of the innovative things going on, the oyster hatchery, the aquaculture activities, and right behind me in Narragansett Bay campus is our aquaculture tank that Terry Bradley referenced. It's a really interesting place to go and see. And we are growing as we speak, different species. So as a reminder, because this was an example of it, we may not be able to get to all the questions, but I will say to this, we will try to answer all the questions on our website, the Business Engagement Center website, after this event. And don't forget also to post on social media if you are using the hashtag RIFoodSummit22. We're going to take a short break, very short this time. We are going to listen to a video from the Rhode Island Nursery and Landscape Association, and then we will be back with our next panel, which is innovative ways to finance your business. Thank you.
What do you want to be when you grow up? It's a question that rings through every high school hallway and classroom, on college quads, in lecture halls, and beyond. What do you want to be when you grow up? And the answer, for everyone, is not the same. For some, the answer is found in the dirt, in the dust, and mixed in the concrete. It's found in the quest for placing that perfect stone, or in the perfect rows of seeds planted. Something small that grows inside. A passion that is nourished and fed and tended and groomed to grow into something big. Because it is all about the process of planning and designing and solving problems. And all along the way, creating a career that makes the world a better, more beautiful, more resilient, more sustainable, more colorful, more delicious place to be. Because this knowledge and skill and mastery that grows and evolves into so many different kinds of classrooms, in the rain, in greenhouses, and on protected and stewarded shorelines. These are opportunities to work hard, to plant deep roots and to build strong foundations, and to follow in the footsteps of those tied to the land and waters of Rhode Island. An opportunity to learn and to grow your passion, to grow a sense of purpose, and to become part of the solution. So, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to thank Shannon Brawley for providing us that video of the Rhode Island Nursery and Landscape Association. They're doing amazing work in workforce development throughout the food sector. So we have a quick, we have our last panel. We will do that, and then after that will be a quick other conversation that I'm going to have with Mary Parlange, who is the president's wife, who is very passionate about the food sector. But before we get to that conversation, this is our final panel of the day, is unique funding mechanisms to promote growth in agriculture and aquaculture industries. Christine Smith, who's the former managing director of innovation at the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, will be leading this panel. And I want to welcome Christine.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you so much for allowing this panel to share all the resources that are available for the aquaculture and the agriculture industries here in Rhode Island. So the format is we're going to have a lightning round where my colleagues and I will be talking about the resources available from our different viewpoints of where we sit in the ecosystem. And joining me will be Lauren Abda. She is a co-founder of Branch Venture Group and founder of Branch Foods. Also joining me will be Dr. Tolani Olagundoya. And Tolani is a clinical assistant professor of leadership and direct at URI and director of the Rhode Island 4-H Youth Development Program. And she'll be covering some USDA projects that are coming our way, as well as her current activities. And closing out our panel is Pete Rumsey. Pete is Chief Business Development Officer at the URI Research Foundation. And Pete will be sharing with us some of the state programs that have funded development of the food sector, and also some future programs that are here and just starting from the Economic Development Administration. So whether you are developing a new product, whether you're seeking to find partnerships or networks that you can become part of, or even if you're looking to develop new talent, you're always looking for resources, whether it's funding or whether it's connections. And one thing I hope that you have as a takeaway from this program, from this panel, is that there are an abundant number of resources that you can tap into to help grow your business. And not only do I think they're abundant, but I'm really happy to say I see a lot of momentum and that they're also growing. So I think in addition to the specific information you're going to want to hear from us today, I really want you to have that takeaway message. So I'm going to kick it off, the panel, and I'm going to talk about the funding mechanisms that are available from the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation. Your contact, if you have any follow-up information or if you're interested in applying for any of these programs, would be our food czar, our beloved food czar, Julie Stelmazik. So number one of our most popular programs at the Commerce Corporation is the Innovation Voucher. That is a grant. It's a grant of up to $50,000, and it's targeted to research and development. So if you're a food company or an aquaculture company, any company, and you're doing internal R&D and you've hit a gap, perhaps you need a validation study, or perhaps you just need some sort of technical expertise that's not available on your own team. And you can find that expertise at a college or university, or you can work with someone like Catherine Flynn, who can help connect you into those resources at the university. You can apply for a voucher. And if you're accepted, the Commerce Corporation will pay, as I said, up to $50,000 to have that work completed for you. Now, if you're a food manufacturer, you have also have the option of requesting funds for internal R&D. And I always think that examples help really illustrate this for you. So 2 examples I'd like to share. One is the Matunic Oyster Bar. They were having some difficulty with reliability of their seed for the oysters a few years ago, and they were able to work with Dr. Marta Gomez-Chiari at the University of Rhode Island, use her expertise to develop their own hatchery so that they could not have to be relying on these unreliable sources. Another example of a consumer packaged good in food, GoTef. GoTef was incubated at Hope in Maine and had grown to a point where they wanted to move out into a commercial kitchen, but they needed the expertise so that they could make that leap and go from small batch to commercial production. So those are 2 examples of the innovation voucher. Another grant that's available is to intermediaries, and this is called the Network Matching Grant. And that's meant to help entities that provide services such as technical assistance, space on flexible terms, or access to capital, provide those services, extend those services to companies in the state. Again, some good examples. We help companies or entities here that are doing well and want to expand. So we've helped Hope in Maine. We've provided them funding to be able to add a 4th kitchen. We've also helped them develop a contract manufacturing process. So that's one example of expanding if you're an existing Rhode Island entity and you're looking to expand your services. Another example is our very own Lauren here at Branch Food. Branch has been very successful in Boston, and we very much wanted their expertise in Rhode Island. They applied, and they'll soon be expanding their activities, and that's what Lauren will be talking about. We also have a program where if you as a food company are participating in a federal program called SBIR, or Small Business Innovation Research Grants, and you win one of these highly competitive coveted grants, you can apply to the Commerce Corporation and you can receive some matching funds. Again, we know that there's always a need for funds, and if you are able to be awarded one of these highly competitive federal grants, we want to make sure you have all the resources or at least some additional funding to use to be very successful with the federal funds. So, and there's one more program that you might be interested in. It's called the Wave Maker Fellowship Program. This is a program, again, at the Commerce Corporation that provides assistance in paying off student loan debt. So if you are working in a STEM field at a Rhode Island company, you can apply to become a Wave Maker Fellow. This is a 2-year program. Depending on your level of degree, you can get up to $6,000 a year, and it's all meant to match your student loan payments, so we can help pay you to pay off your student loans. So that's one program that usually launches around April, and that's something to really be on the lookout for. And it's targeted for companies to be able to provide that to their employees, or if you're an entrepreneur, you are self-employed per se, you can also apply. So that's pretty much a good roundup of what's going on at the Commerce Corporation. And so I think maybe I'd like to move on to Lauren then, if Lauren could share with us what's going on at Branch Food.
Great, thank you, Christine. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I've so enjoyed hearing about all the great work being done in Rhode Island that's contributing to a healthier, more sustainable, and environmentally friendly food system. We've heard today, and as I think many of us know, the food industry is at a critical inflection point. It's a time of enormous innovation and excitement, but also significant food insecurity and uncertainty. But I'm optimistic, and I think based on also what we've been hearing today, excited to see the role that Rhode Island will play in creating those solutions that are so desperately needed for local and global food system sustainability. So by way of introduction, I'm the founder of Branch Food. We are based in Boston, as Christine had mentioned. We seek to forge a globally connected community of innovators that will create the future of food. And we do this by providing numerous resources for entrepreneurs, bringing new products, technology, and services to market, as well as corporate engagement programs that help connect larger companies with innovators and entrepreneurs for collaboration. We also run an annual conference, Food Edge, that seeks to bring together industry leaders creating the future of food, and we will host our next one in May 2022. So stay tuned for more announcements related to that upcoming conference. But today I'm here to talk a little bit about our work at Branch Venture Group. So at BVG, we seek to support high growth, innovative food ventures through network, capital, and expertise. We are an angel investment network focused on funding entrepreneurs that are launching new businesses across consumer packaged goods, to food tech, to ag tech, and really backing entrepreneurs that are building and creating the future of food. Our primary focus is investing in entrepreneurs raising under $3 million with the capacity to syndicate larger opportunities through networks and venture firms. We look across North America for investment opportunities and are particularly excited by what we're seeing coming out of Rhode Island. To date, we've invested in 15 companies. We've participated in 24 financing rounds and deployed a little over $3.3 million in capital to emerging companies, many of which are located in the New England region. I will say we do our research. We have a process for investment consideration that consists of conversations and research on individual investment opportunities, and implement a due diligence process that intends to help us understand businesses better, ultimately to be better investors and partners to entrepreneurs, and support their efforts and the change in the companies that they're developing. Generally, we're looking for early stage food and food-centric businesses, ones that have, typically a competitive advantage stemming from such things as strong intellectual property or strategic relationships. We're also looking for founders and entrepreneurs who seek to build high growth food businesses, and come with industry credibility, passion, determination, and willingness to work with a group that they can collaborate with to grow and succeed. And ultimately are looking for companies that have an exit strategy, which will return capital to our angel investor members. Lastly, I'm proud to say that we were the second most active angel group nationwide funding food-related startups in 2021. And you can learn more about all of our work at branchventuregroup.com. If you have a company that you'd like to have reviewed by our management team, please pay special attention to our investment process, which is detailed under the Entrepreneurs tab on our website. And we look forward to hearing more about the great work being done by entrepreneurs in Rhode Island. So thank you for having me, and look forward to hearing from the community on their funding needs.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. We're very excited to have you and your resources here in Rhode Island, and really look forward to some really good things to come. Next, I think let's move to Talani. Talani, can you tell us what's up from your perspective on resources for entrepreneurs?
Sure. Thank you so much, Christine, and everyone. I'm so happy to be here today in the presence of so many great people who are discussing food and the various ways that we are trying to increase the production of food here in Rhode Island and around the world. With the growing population, especially after the pandemic, some of my colleagues and I at URI and at CCRI thought that if the population is growing at this exponential rate, we are going to need more food. And if we need more food, we're going to need more people to help produce good and healthy foods. And with and one of the best ways that we can produce good and healthy foods is through developing a strong workforce and effective leaders from various backgrounds and race, and which is what we did here at Rhode Island, or at the University of Rhode Island. We collaborated with the URI faculty members and staff from the URI College of Life Sciences, Arts and Science, URI Cooperative Extension, Rhode Island 4-H Youth Development, and the Community College of Rhode Island. We collaborated and now have been awarded a USDA grant through the National Institute of Food and Agriculture to lead the first or one of the first undergraduate student, youth, and underserved population agriculture food system fellowship program here in Rhode Island. This education and workforce development program, which focuses on various population, including the underserved and urban population here in Rhode Island. This program will allow us to provide professional development opportunities to K through 14 educational professionals, non-formal education that cultivates food and agriculture interest in youth, workforce training in community and junior and technical colleges, training of undergraduate students in research and extension. And our program priority will focus on agriculture, science, policy leadership, food and nutrition, and sustainable agriculture. So we're very excited about this program. The program is called the Rhode Island Agriculture and Food Systems Fellowship Program. And it's a model for students to engage in agriculture science and policy that incorporates experiential learning internships that focuses on academic or that allows students to participate in academics or with industry experts, to take coursework in leadership, professional skills development, coursework in science communication and community-led engagement. And the whole program-wide commitment is to advance justice or topics in justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in food system in Rhode Island through conversation and sensitivity training for all program participants. And so I guess the goal is to teach the next future generation of agricultural leaders. Application for this for students will be opened at the end of the summer or in the fall. So keep an eye out for that. We're very excited here in Rhode Island and at CCRI, and we can't wait to get started. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tolani. I think what we've seen in the last few years through the pandemic, we've had a lot of workforce issues, and I think it's so incredibly important to make sure that we have people trained in the right place at the right time, and ready to do this important work that we have in front of us. So thank you so much for all you're doing. It's a very, very important area. So our cleanup batter per se is Pete Rumsey. Pete, you want to take it away and tell us? I know Pete has a lot of zeros attached to his project, so this will, I think, be very informative to everyone.
Thank you so much, Christine, and we're hopeful there's a lot of zeros indeed. And before I begin, just thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with this esteemed panel and tough acts to follow. And also a shout out to Catherine Flynn and the Business Engagement Center here at URI for this wonderful production on very important subjects, and her crew as well there, Sharon and Dino and Katie McGuinn, just outstanding work. So with that said, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you about something that I've been engaged with here at URI. And it's a really an unprecedented opportunity associated with the global pandemic that we've all been experiencing. Recently, the U.S. Economic Development Agency, also known as the U.S. EDA, has released something called the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. And this Build Back Better Regional Challenge is the EDA's part that they're playing in making $1 billion available for proposals to conduct really generational change within an industry or industry cluster in a region. And in this case, we here in Rhode Island and URI, in cooperation with the state of Rhode Island and the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation and Secretary Pryor, have put in an application in cooperation with over 70 industry partners, both industry and coalition partners. And we were one of 529 applicants. And we were chosen as one of 60 of those 529 applicants to proceed to a phase 2 proposal. That for that first proposal, we were awarded $500,000 to put together that proposal for phase 2. And that phase 2 proposal is due March 15th, a short 8 weeks ago, 8 weeks in the future, but who's counting days, right? And that proposal will compete for up to $100 million in funding. And there will be, out of the 60 who were chosen to proceed, 20 to 30 will be chosen for that opportunity. So we're working very hard on that with a great team of partners here at URI and within the state, industry partners, and we're very excited with that opportunity. And digging down deeper into that opportunity, there are 7 projects, 7 named blue economy projects that we're focused on. And our proposal is called the Rhode Island Blue Economy Technology Cluster, or if you say that really fast, the Betsy cluster, the Betsy proposal, Blue Economy Technology Cluster. And there are 2 projects within those 7 projects that hit really close to home in a great way with regards to today's proceedings. The first one of those is focused, one of the projects is focused on a smart shellfish hatchery. To begin with, focused on oysters, but in time, other species. And this is really an exciting project using cutting edge technology, including LED lighting, and really taking, to begin, oyster spat production to the next level. Actually, Christine referred to one of the innovation vouchers that came from Rhode Island Commerce. This is really a follow-on opportunity from that, where the Matunic Oyster Farm, working in cooperation with Marta at URI and her colleagues and researchers, as well as researchers at Roger Williams University, as well as working with DEM and many other folks, are proposing to bring a smart shellfish hatchery to life that would actually provide security, food security within the state by providing reliable as well as inexpensive oyster spat to all of our producers within the state, allowing even new producers to come online. And then also we'd be able to export it to other states. So this is a very exciting project. Again, a beautiful private-public partnership opportunity with research from URI, as well as Roger Williams University, working with government agencies such as Terry Gray's DEM, and then working with local entrepreneurs such as perhaps Terry Rasso down at Matunic Oyster Farm, and some other local providers like Volt Server and Steve Eves, who work on LED lighting, and also good folks in the control space at Hanna Instruments. So those are just some of the exciting things happening in that project. And another project that we're focused on is closely associated with fisheries, and that would be to address a sustainable seafood wastewater processing. It's not a big secret here in Rhode Island among people who know that we actually have to export a great deal of our calamari, of our squid catch, of our squid catch offshore to be processed and then bring it back onshore because of a lack of capacity for wastewater processing. We are working with a great group of people like Diane Lynch from the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, Terry Gray, and again, Director Gray and his DEM team, and also Julie, who you've seen here today, our food czar, our beloved food czar here within Rhode Island Commerce in the state of Rhode Island, to look at options to actually increase our capacity for seafood wastewater treatment. That would actually open up not only to our existing seafood producers the ability to process more of their catch and expand their businesses, making more jobs within the state, but it would also make us more attractive to attract additional industry partners into the state. So both of these are 2 out of 7 of the projects. Other projects talk about a Rhode Island Smart Bay, which actually is very interesting from a seafood and from aquaculture and monitoring water quality throughout the bay and surrounds of Rhode Island and the Northeast region, and a Blue Technology Innovation Center where we could have existing businesses as well as new businesses intermingle with researchers and industry partners and come up with ingenious new solutions to sustainable aquaculture and sustainable fisheries. So that's what we're up to on my side of the fence, Christine. And also, in addition to that Build Back Better Regional Challenge opportunity that we're going after very quickly, the state of Rhode Island recently, Governor McKee in a State of the State has foreshadowed that there may be some opportunity for blue economy funding from the state's American Rescue Plan funds, and that will go before the legislature and of course have to be legislated if it is to come true, but we're very excited about that. And also Catherine Flynn from the Business Engagement Center and myself, in cooperation with Rhode Island Commerce, are working on a Rhode Island Blue Tech Innovation Campus that would support our application to the EDAs, the Economic Development Agencies, Build Back Better Regional Challenge. So that's a lot of acronyms. Hopefully I didn't screw up and throw too many out there, Christine. And it all comes back to Christine and her great work at Rhode Island Commerce and Innovation Vouchers. So back to you, Christine.
Thanks, Pete. That was a really great wrap up. I know you've got a lot going on, so thank you for giving us that overview. So I think now we're moving into the questions, the Q&A section. We have a few minutes left for that. And I have one that I often get asked. And so I'm interested, Lauren, now that you're going to be also offering some assistance in Rhode Island. When someone's interested in working with you, or perhaps trying to apply for some of your funding, what time or what do you look for? What should someone be ready to give you as part of their pitch?
Yeah, great question, Christine, and thanks for asking it. So at Branch Venture Group, we have a process for investment consideration that really begins with our GUST application. So if you go on our website under the Entrepreneurs tab, under the investment process area, you'll find a link to our GUST application. That's really the first indication of interest that you'd like to apply for funding from Branch Venture Group members. Typically, we have companies submit, I would say, 2 main pieces of materials through that portal, which is first their fundraising deck, which is inclusive of all the aspects of their business, the traction that they've had to date, the vision that they have for their company, how much money they're raising, their team, all of those kind of aspects of what they've achieved with their startup to date. And then also their financial model. So at Branch Venture Group, we are looking, primarily for companies that have had actual financials. So they've been in the market, they've been selling, or they have some information regarding the amount that they've raised and how they're spending it. And then what their projections are looking to 3 to 5 years out in the future, so that we understand kind of the type of business that they want to build. And where we can be helpful from Branch Venture Group's perspective.
Great, thank you. So I'm thinking, do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay. One question here is, how can I connect to learn more about funding for my company? So I think, again, for the Commerce Corporation, the best contact for you is Julie Stelmelix, and she will be able to talk to you generally, see where you are, and help direct you to the best program at Commerce. And I think if everyone else, Tolani or Pete. think Pete may be.
No, I was unmuted. So one name that I don't want to forget here at URI as well is Catherine Flynn with the Business Engagement Center. Really acts as the front door for industry and companies here at URI. So please touch base with her. I work hand in glove with Catherine, and would be glad to help people talk more about the programs that I was talking about.
And how about for you, Tolani?
Oh, I'm still okay. I was going to add that as we start the program, we are actually looking for sites that we can have our students come to. So we're looking for mentors in the agriculture or food policy or any kind of sect that would relate to the work that we're doing. So any companies who's interested in hosting our students or becoming a mentor, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on the URI website, and or any information that's sent through the Food Summit Information Center.
Thank you. And thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Pete. Thank you for joining us today and sharing all of this. And I do hope, we're kicking this off. I said my personal feeling is that Rhode Island has great momentum. We have a lot of resources, and there's still more to come. And so I hope after hearing from us, you agree. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, Lauren, Talani, and Pete. We really appreciate you being on a panel with us today. Pete, thanks for the shout out. And yes, I am a resource here at URI for folks that need information about anything URI or even commerce related programs. I want to thank all our panelists today. This has been a really informative time. I also want to update you on the weather. We now have about an inch of snow on the ground since we got started, so this is exciting. As with the summit last year, we are going to have several follow-on events. And rather than determine ahead of time what those events might be, we actually are going to be sending out a survey to all of you to see what your thoughts are on follow-on events and the needs in the community and things that you heard today that might be of more interest. But we're not done yet. We have two more really interesting conversations. The first is a short video from John Taylor in URI's Department of Plant Sciences and Entomology. He's going to share a little bit more about what's going to happen this fall at URI in our honors colloquium, which is called Just Good Food. John?
I'm John Taylor, Assistant Professor of Agroecology in the Department of Plant Sciences and Entomology at the University of Rhode Island. I'm here today to tell you about the Fall 2022 Honors Colloquium Public Lecture Series. So I'm one of the organizers of the colloquium. Now, for over 50 years, the colloquium has brought leading speakers from across the globe to Rhode Island to engage students, faculty, and the larger community in key events of the day. This year's colloquium, Just Good Food, Creating Equitable, Sustainable, and Resilient Food Systems, will explore many facets of food systems, including food history and culture, socio-ecological impacts and planetary limits, food, race, and gender, the political economy of food systems, indigenous foodways and food sovereignty, labor in the food systems, and food innovation and social entrepreneurship. We hope to engage the public in lively conversations on the past, present, and future of food through the lenses of sustainability, justice, and resilience. Food and conversation, of course, go hand in hand, so we'll pair these conversations with complementary culinary experiences. Open and free to the public, the lecture series will be held in Edwards Auditorium on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. from September 13th through December 13th, 2022. This series will also be streamed online. We're still scheduling speakers, but so far we have commitments from Dr. Olivier de Schutter, who is a Belgian legal scholar and professor who served as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food from 2008 to 2014, and is the current Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights. Dr. Ashante Rees is a professor in the Africa and African Diaspora Studies Department at the University of Texas, Austin. She is the author of Black Food Geographies and editor of Black Food Matters. Dr. Rees, to quote her faculty profile, works at the intersection of critical food studies and Black geographies examining the ways Black people produce and navigate food-related spaces. Saru Jayaraman is the president of One Fair Wage and director of the Food Labor Research Center at the University of California, Berkeley. Through One Fair Wage, Ms. Jayaraman organizes and advocates for raising wages and working conditions for restaurant and other service workers. Ms. Jayaraman is the author of the best-selling book, Forked. Kate Fitzgerald is a principal at the consulting firm Fitzgerald Canepa. She is an expert on sustainable food system policy at the federal, state, and local levels. Leah Penniman is a well-known farmer, author, educator, and food sovereignty activist. She is the co-founder and co-director of Soulfire Farm in Grafton, New York, and is the author of the book, Farming While Black. We're really excited to be able to bring these speakers to Rhode Island, and we'll be adding several more to the roster over the next couple months. We'll make sure to send you updates on the lecture series through the Food Summit mailing list, and we really hope to see you this fall. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I cannot wait. All of those speakers sound so interesting. For those of you who are interested in learning more about the Honors Colloquium, please continue to visit our website and the Honors Colloquium website. We will be giving updates. As I said, the Honors Colloquium begins next September. Before we conclude for today, I'd like to introduce the audience to one of our newest members in the food sector, the URI president's wife, Mary Parlange. Mary has been a steadfast supporter of food-related initiatives throughout her career and has kindly joined us today to help us unpack some of what we learned today. And so Mary and I are just going to have a quick question. Mary, a quick Q&A, I should say. Mary, thanks very much for joining us. We hope your first Food Summit, R6, was interesting, and we hope you enjoyed learning what was going on around the state and the region. I have a few questions for you now that you've listened and learned. I've gotten to know you since you arrived in August, and I just want to know from the beginning about your passion about food and locally grown food specifically, and where it began. And as you've traveled, how have you taken that passion around the globe?
Thank you, Catherine. It's a real pleasure to be here. My mind is swimming from everything that I've learned today. It's just been so fantastic. Just a first thank you to all our panelists and experts. I'm so impressed. This has been just fascinating. So from my personal perspective, I grew up in northern New Mexico, and from a really young age, my mother was very sort of, I think, her mother had been an avid gardener, and so we always had a vegetable garden. We always went to farmers markets. We always composted. We always did all those things that are now becoming so important and kind of trendy, whatever. And as we've traveled around the world, we went to UC Davis, which is a lot of people know is another land-grant university, and we went to Switzerland and to Canada, into Australia. Everywhere I've been, I've visited farmers markets. I've lived in different systems where they have different methods of composting, different agricultural norms, different cuisines, different cultures around food. And it's just been something I've always loved and been interested in.
That's fantastic. And I know since you've been here, you have already visited 3 of our URI farms and helped harvest apples and been to some of the local farms. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences doing all those things?
Oh, absolutely. So the first farm we visited was the research farm, where we got to see, yes, not the East Farm, the other farm, the
farm. Yep.
Yes, the one where the vegetables are grown, and they have some interesting experiments with bird deterrent systems and saffron growing, and I met John Taylor and some students who were doing a summer internship. It was summertime, it was August, so there's students doing summer internships in Providence in growing food in urban environments. That was exciting to learn about that. And then I got to go to East Farm and help pick apples, glean for local food banks and other charities. That's kind of a gleaning operation where URI has just the most amazing farm out at East Farm. The bees and the the pollinator fields and the apple orchards and cranberry trees. Just a fabulous place. Also got to see Peckham Farm, and it's now regularly on my running route. I go visit the pigs and the goats and say hello to them as I run by every day. The staff there are just amazing, and I got to see baby goat the day after it was born, and the baby lambs, and hold a chicken with the students who are learning about chickens. And so it's wonderful to be in a land grant institution and a sea grant institution where so many innovative, exciting research topics are being studied.
Great. I mean, we love the fact that you're diving right into the URI experience, and so appreciate that. So you've listened today. It's your first summit. We've had several. This is our second virtual one. I'm just wondering if there were one or two things that you learned about the Rhode Island food sector that you didn't already know, or are there things that you're open to learning more about?
Oh my gosh, I would say one or two. There are probably 50 new things about the Rhode Island food sector I learned about that I didn't already know. I am so impressed by the richness of this state in terms of its potential for food production, for sustainable food production, and I think the agencies we have, the councils, the projects, there's a lot going on in this state, and I really literally had no idea. I mean, we're new here, so I guess that's excusable, but it's just the jobs, the potential for jobs, for sustainable food, for economic development in Rhode Island associated with the food sector is stunning. I have to agree with Nona of the Vertical Harvest when she said that food is going to be the defining issue of the 21st century. And I think for Rhode Island to be out in front like this, really taking the lead in a lot of these areas it's so heartening. And so it gives me a lot of hope. And I know that's our state motto, so that's good. But a lot of hope that we can reach those goals of 30% by 2030, 50% by 2060. Those are ambitious goals, but I think we have to do that if we're going to survive these challenging times that are ahead.
I agree. And I think I envision Rhode Island almost being like a pilot state, if you will, trying out some of these newer innovations and newer technologies, and becoming like the sort of star in the ecosystem in terms of how we're handling things. And I think we really have that potential because we're small, we're interconnected, and you'll find, I know you've only been here 6 months, but you're going to get to know everybody, especially in this ecosystem, because of your interest, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I've heard about your personal plans, that you've signed up for the Master Gardener program, and that you might actually put a small vegetable garden at the president's house. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Is that true?
Absolutely. I've already plotted out the vegetable garden. I'm taking the Master Gardener course, which is started. Super excited about that. I'm hoping to learn a lot about the science and the techniques that can be used to garden vegetables. I just love the miracle of growing something from a seed that you can then eat and make a meal out of. It's just fascinating. And we're also potentially planning to have some chickens at the president's house in that back garden. So I just think being part of a land grant institution, having a vegetable garden is always been something I've wanted to do, and the Master Gardener program is going to be a fabulous way to learn more about how to make that happen for me.
That's actually fantastic to hear. I actually think it could be an interesting research opportunity for our many students who are here at URI involved in the agriculture sector. Well, I'm conscious of the time. We've gone a couple minutes over our 12 o'clock ending, but if folks want to reach out to you and engage with you, are you open to that? And,
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to following up on some of these links and projects, and hopefully going to visit some sites and meet people and get more involved. Great. Well, that's fantastic. This has been a great, quick conversation. I'm
I'm so happy to have a food economy advocate sitting in the president's house, besides, of course, the president. So I look forward to many, many more of these conversations. And once again, welcome to Rhode Island. And once again, everyone, thank you for attending our food summit. We will be following up with a survey. We have lots of things that you can find, source on our website. I want to thank very much our behind the scenes event staff. On my team, Sharon Pavignano, Katie McGuinn, and Dino Audiello. And then from the Inner Space Center here at the Graduate School of Oceanography, I want to thank Alex DeCiccio and, of course, Ryan Campos. And by the way, Ryan, happy birthday. I found out it was his birthday today. He's working hard. We are just ending here. I want to just make sure that everybody knows that right now I'm broadcasting from the Graduate School of Oceanography campus. You're going to hear a lot more about the Graduate School of Oceanography and our Narragansett Bay campus going forward, because we're going to hope to do a lot more with the blue economy and all the activities that happen here. I also want to let you know you're going to be hearing more and more about our honors colloquium, Just Good Food. So stay tuned for more information, and thank you very much for attending. Take care. And it's snowing still.